Go to change pants. Go to change pants. Oh my god. Try to delete the game, but I'm told to write a review. Writing this review. This game was actually not that bad besides the constant checking metabolism, trying to find a food without getting sick and throwing out, almost dying of thirst, and then overeating because I ate things with water in them. Oh my god. I hate things with water in them. There's 121,000 reviews for this game, but there's 8,000 players. I don't really understand that. Wait, Jagex owns GameSpire, which is crazy. This does reflect on Jagex. Yeah, you can only play this game single player, but as like a lazy game to play in the background, it might be really good for that. Except you have to deal with all the shitty food mechanics and everything. Yeah, this was funny actually. I love reading reviews about video games. They're quite funny. Super addicting. Yeah. $1,600. 2,000 hours. Buy it on sale. Longer review recommended was a toss up. A simple 2x2 can take hours. And look at the key mapping. Yeah, they have this problem in Rust. I used to be like, "Don't build near me, and I won't kill you." And then they would build near me, so I would kill them and raid them, and but they would ignore my advice. You know. So they added NPCs to Scum, which is like something that is something I did want to hear. It's a bad game. It has population, but I don't want to play with other people in this game. I don't know. I feel like I read more about the game than I do playing it. It's weird. I'm playing two survival games and an RPG right now. I don't know if I need any more. It's kind of weird. I don't need to pay for any of these games either. I could actually maybe tighten my budget and give my family some more money, essentially. Oh, I'm too heavy. I gotta go dump. Scum strikes me as a good world to live in because it does have like a generator of like mobs and stuff, like zombies that do have like kind of a realism jump scare like element to them, and it is a slow game that I could play on GeForce Now. It's a beautiful game, but it's also older now. I don't know. It has its ups and downs, and I do like Scum. I put like 60 hours into it or something, and I want to see what it feels like to have a base in Scum. But honestly, I thought even Icarus was a little bit better than Scum. And I wonder if but Icarus didn't have a PvE generator. It's entirely like a survival, like farming, crafting sim. It has like no real combat besides hunting and like predatorial animals and stuff. Like, so, it's not really the Rust experience that I'm looking for. I would play Rust if the harassment wasn't real, like all the time, and you can't get a single player experience. And there's like this element of like it wipes you. One of the nice things about Scum is I don't think it ever wipes you. I don't think it ever wipes you, and it's like every day. Nasty storm we have here. If I lose the internet, that's why. I like the idea of a puppet spawner. I don't like the name of the games. When I tell people scum, they'll be like, you know, and that's kind of what it sounds like, but it's not really. I don't know. It's not a bad game per se. It fits the whole survival sandbox thing. Do I need to play 4 games at once? I mean, I don't really have a main. I'm kind of maining Mortal. No, they wanted realism, and it's like, 600 hours. Yeah, there's like hang gliders and helicopters and shit in this game, just like Grand Theft Auto, and it is a good game, but it's like this massive time sink.
You have been promoted.
Ooh, I got a promotion. Promotion? Ooh, I'm a Spike Lieutenant now. Does that give me a rep standing bonus? I think it does, huh? Yeah, we haven't looked at my my pilot services lately. No, I'll take an or sorry, my interactions. I'll take. Ooh, look, I'm up. I'm at 2.44 Mimitar, but the Galente don't like me so much, and now we've pretty much equalized here. And I don't know what to do about that, but I guess I could just haul for them. I am hurting my... Or I'm sorry, I'm fighting a Mar. I have to work on Galente, just period, because I've been doing a lot of Caldari faction warfare. So I'll have to go to Gal Mill there for a time if I want more rep. But I got my history for this. Yeah, can we see a history or whatever? Is there a history of what I got? Oh no, here we go. 0.437 from the promotion. So I got half a point from this faction warfare promotion, and I'll probably get more. Man, I lost a tenth of a thing for that contraband, huh? Fucking assholes. So yeah, yeah, and I am fixing my rep. I don't think faction warfare is the way to fix your rep though, which kind of sucks. This was, yeah, I finished this thing. Yeah, let's see. Is there other anomalies? No. So we could try and finish that medium, but that guy keeps coming back to the medium. Oh, yeah, this Navy hook bill came in on top of me for some reason, and now I want to leave.
Warp drive
Why are
active.
you in my site late? You scam me down or what? You're weird. Anyways, first of all, scam is not a scam. That's a relief. Secondly, yes, you have to puke, pee, and poop. Thirdly, it's not another battle royale clone. It's more like a DayZ with a larger focus on survival, plus some enemy mechs in addition to the zombies. Scam is an open island survival game set in the near future. The idea with the Prisoner Island survival show is good, but it has to be expanded as well as the max player count of 64. It's, yeah, this guy's 200 hours, so that's what I'm doing. You can mod pretty much every aspect of your server. Once you do that, it's a pretty fun game. Oh, yeah, so, maybe this guy played for 4 hours and quit. Crafting anything without gloves now results in numerous hand lacerations. Wow. All that grind. This guy with 2,000 hours, he's like, nope. Oh. Yeah, I see a lot of bad reviews here, and I remember why I wasn't able to stay. It can't keep me there. I even visited it recently, and the game can't keep me there. But I needed to remind myself.
Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted.
Yeah. Yeah, don't think I'm gonna do Scum. It's an interesting game to take a look at, but I don't think it's the right game, unfortunately. I've played all these games to death, and I want a sandbox, but I don't know. I don't see a good sandbox to get lost in. I keep thinking No Man's Sky would be a good one to keep working on, because it does have a cool space battle system to it that I could get lost in for a while. But I don't think so. Unfortunately, guys, I'm going to have to go to the restroom. I'll be back. Sorry. To charge these headphones while I'm out there. You can watch me get gagged. I'm going to have to take my jacket out of there. I shouldn't do that. Sissy, dinner time. You don't want your dinner? I hope you're not sick. Okay, so I believe I will fry some meatballs. No. Yeah. We will fry some meatballs in some olive oil. And I will have ketchup and meatballs. Sounds good to me. I have olive oil here somewhere. Okay, let's start this bitch. Around this oil. Nice and covered. Yeah, you want your dinner? That's good, kitty. I love you, kitty. That's a hungry kitty. Her appetite's coming back. I'm glad the pills have helped her. No Man's Sky has buildable ships and a companion follower system of like ships that follow you around and do combat for you. And I'm thinking like that might be a pretty good sandbox to kind of fall into. But I'm already doing Mortal Eve and FFXI. I don't know. I'm just looking for variation in the games that I play. No Man's Sky has good music, but it's kind of a console kids game. It doesn't really have the gambling that I like in a sandbox. It doesn't have the world or the combat that I look for, and it's not really my favorite place to be. It's getting there, and it needs more work. It needs more combat work and more enemy spawn. Uh And Shrouded's always good to do some work on because it's like you always just keep on you just kind of keep on working in that chart trying to get more points towards like getting a better character, and it does get good. It's a good game. It fits almost all of the requirements. It's a little more it's not linear. It's just sort of level based, and you kind of go places at a certain cadence, and it's a little more on the rails than I care for. Rust is always an option, but boy, a little bit of Rust went a long way. The naval update kind of tired me out, and now I just don't even care about those bases. They can get raided now for all I care, and they probably will, which is fine by me. They can have that loot. No Man's Sky kind of fits the mold. Hi, kitty. I am sorry, but I have to get up. Get up, kitty. I gotta get up. Sorry. Cooking something. I noticed that when I cook things, you come and sit on me. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll just let that cook. Ketchup and triacha over here. That'll be good. There's like the sandboxes. There's not enough sandbox here. I could try and get really far in Valheim. That's a slow, annoying game. Well, hi, kitty. Yeah. Well, hi, I see you there. You having a love attack because I'm cooking food? I think so. I like when you love attack because I'm cooking food, but it's also kind of annoying, kitty. It's sort of annoying, you know? I love this kitty. I will always maintain that I love this kitty. She's a great little kitty. Mhm. Love this kitty very much. She can get it. Oh, kitty, are you gonna puke on me? Don't puke on me, kitty. No? Okay, how about lap? Go sit on lap. Lap, kitty, lap. Get off my stomach now. Stop sitting on my stomach, kitty. I'm not your fucking statue. I'm not your display stand. And she just comes and sits on my stomach, and it's like, that's okay, but you're kind of blocking the television, kitty. Like sit down or whatever. I'm gonna have to get up here again in a minute. I don't see a good sandbox to fall into besides Rust. It's fucking annoying. Rust has its ups and downs. Here's another dude shopping. What about this tree? Did you hit this tree? Yes. My kitty likes the smell of the meat. It's probably making her crazy. She's like, oh, it smells so good. This is like torture. I should blow the meat smell out. Oh, kitty, huh? This is like torture for you, this burning meat. Or not burning, but, you know, cooking meat. Yeah, there's no sandbox to get lost in. It's Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown. Survival strategy game. Oh, No Man's Sky keeps coming up, but it's like, I don't know. It's a lot of work. It's a really grindy game. It's definitely a money game. I should go stir my dinner before it burns. I don't care if it burns crispy on one side. That doesn't bother me. When I see smoke, I'll go deal with it. Could always just run 76. Custom. Play 76 custom, but it's like, played it to death. Yeah, well, I'm good with these games. I can just watch YouTube stuff, I guess, you know? I could always look for more games on YouTube. I am docked up because I guess I was waiting for a site to pop. Let's see if a site has popped. I've blocked 2 of these guys, so I'm just gonna sit here. Never mind. Calyx, Forgotlings. Mr. Toilet, great job. Well, let's put my headphones in here. Oh, my kitty. She's just perched there on my lap, just being a good kitty. I love her. Okay, so... yes. Did you get that? I don't know. The Hollywood Shuffle. Yes, you did. You did get that. Download Hollywood Shuffle. Close that thing.
5 heartbeats. One.
I want to come back to this and finish this long video, but first I want to go looking at gaming. I better stir my dinner. I'll be right back. My cat got off my lap. That's okay. I think you're done. Should put it in a bottle. Throw the bottle away. So I'll have a protein drink. Do this deal. And I will drop oil into that, I guess. Good. I don't really see a better bottle around. Yeah, I don't really see a better bottle. Yeah. I'll work it out. Okay. This will be a good meal. I have 7 meatballs. And I need to make sure I have a fork over here. I don't see one. Yes, I do. Okay. 7 meatballs, which I will have ketchup and sriracha with. Now I'll go back and watch his video. Am I going to DC on anything? No.
The greatest pieces of black cinema ever made. Also Meteor Man. And like, I'm pretty sure that shit was out in the 90s. I really could have watched that in 8th grade. This is the problem of black media, and it brings me back to stuff I talked about in that last video, such as the Vernon doctrine of black media avoidance. In short, this posits that whenever you watch black media made within the mainstream media structure, you should always be aware that some form of distortion is in play, that some political message is being employed, even when it seems like the politics are in alignment with your own. And that you should always keep in mind why you like what you like and how that is being used to alter your perception and your behavior. That is why the machine's specific image and flavor of blackness is favored in our media historically, and while some images of blackness are not. That is why Fruitvale Station had to come before Sinners, why Selma came before Origin or the 13th. And it's, again, not to say that these films are bad, but to say that their political intentions are still aligned with the status quo, even as it appears that they struggle against it. But it can't be undersold that in this framework, we still get amazing art. The process is flawed, the system is ugly, but when artists get in their bag, they make amazing stuff for us, and we can use that to support each other. Without Hollywood Shuffle, we don't just get the 5 heartbeats from Robert Townsend, we also don't get I'm Gonna Get You Sucker from Keenan Ivory Wayans, or probably even all of In Living Color. When John Singleton put Ice Cube in Boys in the Hood, Ice Cube parlayed that along with his rap fame into getting a deal to make Friday, and then Ice Cube got F. Gary Gray to direct Friday, and then F. Gary Gray gives us Set It Off with his next movie, which is another classic, and that really jumpstarts the acting career of Queen Latifah, and there's probably this giant web and tree of all these black creators going into the machine, extracting what they can, and then returning it to the community so that more people can make more things, and then that gives more to the culture, even if it's flawed. Through that process, the fight continues, and we don't just survive. In some moments, we thrive. And this practice of engaging with the machine and extracting resources to spread them around to other black people is why my son, who's soon to be in 8th grade, will never have to watch a slave movie in his life if he doesn't want to. This is reflective of the historical tradition of community building that black people have done across the diaspora, not just in America. And it's given us great art, great films, great shows, great cultural moments. But there are limitations, barriers, and caps on what could really come from this framework, because at the end of the day, the problem with black media is that it's still under the machine's control. The machine has the power over everyone except Tyler Perry. And yeah, something about that bothers me. I mean, look at this place. Tyler Perry is a billionaire media mogul who owns his own studio. I can't say that enough. Doesn't have to get approval from anyone to achieve his artistic desires. And considering how once in a lifetime this achievement is, it is inspirational, maybe even aspirational. But think about some of the names I've mentioned thus far in the video. Think about what they did to get where they were, what they did when they got to that position, and what they did after that position was secured for them. And think about how Tyler Perry's moved. Before we get there, let's talk about Tyler specifically and his unique journey to be independent of the machine, and why it explains a lot, not just about the problems with his films, but the problems with him as a filmmaker.
I saw an Oprah show and she said it was cathartic to write things down. So I started writing things down that I had been through. So a friend of mine read it and he said, man, this is a really good play. You should do something with it. And that became the impetus for my first show, I Know I've Been Changed.
And no one showed up that first time.
And all of that wasn't about me trying to do everything. That was about being broke. I couldn't hire anybody to do it. So I had to build the sets. I had to learn how to do the makeup. I had to go on stage and then sell concessions and programs at intermission, you know.
There were about 30 people in the audience, and I thought I'd see 1,200 over the course of the weekend. That was a hard moment and hard lesson learned.
From there till about 98, I was doing one show a year. And every time I would do the show, fail. I got up to an audience of 1,200. I got up to an audience of 300. You still couldn't pay all the bills, but out of every audience, there was somebody who encouraged me to keep going and said they wanted to invest.
Part 2, Lemons to Lemonade. Tyler Perry was born Emmett Perry in New Orleans, Louisiana in 1969, putting him towards the beginning of the Gen Xers, which, while I don't put a ton of weight into generational stereotypes, especially for older communities, It does track like a lot. And I think a lot of Gen Xers, especially Black Gen Xers, were raised in a harsh era saturated with trauma. Xers are born at the end of the Civil Rights Movement, coming of age during the crack epidemic, entering adulthood post the '94 crime bill.
100,000 more police on the streets, expand the death penalty. That's how we'll protect America. Let us roll up our sleeves to roll back this awful tide of
That's how we'll
violence.
protect America, Kitty.
Now, let us get about
more
the business
cops.
of using them.
100,000. It's my worst nightmare. My worst nightmare is 100,000 cops all charging at you with batons in their hands and firing guns in their other hand. They're like, baton beating time, and they're shooting the guns as they're running at you, and there's 100,000 of them. And you're like, oh my God, it's 100,000 police, run! It's the worst thing that I can imagine.
They face a harshness that
Nightmare fuel, like literal nightmare fuel. Oh my God, it's 100,000 cops. It's like a horror movie.
would make the average
I
Black
want to make
millennial
a horror movie. It doesn't have to be long. Maybe even I could have AI generated or whatever. Make an AI film for YouTube or whatever called 100,000 Cops and Nowhere to Run. And then you just see 100,000 cops and they're all running and they have batons in their hands and they're firing guns repeatedly into the air.
or Gen Z curl into the fetal position.
Like most other major
100,000
cities, Austin has
cops.
declared war on drugs.
Many people don't like the police crackdown. They say some innocent people are caught up.
I thought he was literally going to say many people don't like the police. I really thought that it was what he was saying, and I was about to double take. I was like, what? And no, he's like, many people don't like the police activity.
Up in the sweep.
The start of another hard year in the Big Easy. 4 shot at Mardi Gras. Then 4 others gunned down in this house in what's being called the Ash Wednesday Massacre.
You had to come out here.
Ash
What makes you afraid to
Wednesday.
come out? People getting mugged, pocketbooks get snatched,
happened?
and all that junk, man. You ain't coming out your house at night like that.
So you're literally held captive in your own house, huh?
That's right, that's right.
What do you think would solve the situation here?
Clean it up.
Ah, decency.
Perry grew up impoverished and in an abusive household, and the abuse Perry survived was universal. He was physically abused, he watched his mother and his siblings suffer abuse, and he was also sexually abused by both men and women. It cannot be understated that for all the negative attributions I'm gonna hurl at Perry, he is first and foremost a survivor. And this survivor
victim,
mentality can be seen through his work and the moves he's made as a businessman over his career, pushing him to develop his capacity as an actor.
What? A profanity-free set? Why?
To begin with. Perry says that in order to survive his trauma, he would often dissociate. He would make up stories and characters and people to engage with when the reality of his life was too overwhelming.
You said to distance yourself from your father, who, let's be honest, he sounds pretty brutal. He used to beat you relentlessly as a young man, which must have had an effect on you.
Yeah, well, of course it did.
His first set or playhouse was a space under his porch where he would go hide when trying to avoid his father. To say that Perry has daddy issues would be an extreme understatement. His father was the arbiter of abuse in his home, and at times he resented his mother for allowing his father to stay around. What makes things worse, but in some ways explains the abuse, is that the man that Perry thought was his father was actually not his father. Tyler actually says he experienced relief that the man that was so abusive to him as a child was not in any way blood related to him.
But you know, I was able to forgive him in my mid-20s, and that changed my life, because what I did was, what I think a lot of people don't realize or understand is that their parents have a story too. Now, so whatever happened in your life because of them you really need to find out the story so that you can understand it.
But still to this day, Tyler financially supports the man he knew as his father, and he does so because although his father was abusive in all these ways, he never shirked on his role as a provider. In fact, Tyler credits the fact that his father was abusive yet a provider with shaping his own idea of work ethic and dedication. This concept of forgiveness, of perseverance, is so incredibly key to understanding Perry both positively and negatively. Perry credits his ability to forgive and persevere for making his success possible. But as you'll see later, this framework that he's abided by has a downside. Maybe not necessarily for him, but definitely for everyone else.
Man, one thing my father gave to me is the man had the most stupid work ethic I've ever seen in my life. Rain, sleet, hurricanes, lightning, he was going. Even though we don't speak, he gets a check every month. I bought a house and he's taken care of because I'm giving him exactly what he gave me. And I feel good about that because no matter what he did, he still made sure I had food on the table, right? So coming from that place, watching his work ethic, I definitely have that because I don't know what kind of man I would have been had I seen a man that didn't work, that was laying home on the couch all the time, you know? So, yeah.
I don't think I have to do a lot of explaining to engage with how unintentionally revealing that is about Tyler Perry as an entrepreneur and a business owner and a filmmaker. The fact that he credits his abusive relationship with his father as shaping his own capacity to work and run his business is not something to just be passed over. Tyler also credits his mothers and his aunts with shaping his world. Tyler had an undying love for his mother, who was his only solace for most of his life. They were incredibly close, and when she passed in 2009, Tyler states he went through a deep depression. And the Medea character is loosely based off of his experiences with her and his aunts, both in the character's bombastic and comedic stylings, but also in the toughness and tough love ethos that is inherent within the character. The other highly significant force in Tyler's early life that we have to engage with is the Black church. I hope to one day make a standalone video about the Black church in the future, so I'm gonna gloss over some things here. The Black church deserves a deep discussion on its own, but you cannot engage with Tyler Perry as a media figure without recognizing how his success and power,
the church is all through his stuff,
is intrinsically tied to his connection to the Black church and the Black church's most important marketing demographic, Black women.
Like, what were the underground, behind the scenes moves that you made to create like relevance for yourself?
Church, man, and Black women.
Okay.
Man, Black women, like Maze right now. Maze hadn't done an album since 1911.
Right on.
but they can sell out a building, an arena right now because that loyalty. And these women that I went to church with, that I grew up with, you know, I was speaking a language that they understood because of my mother and my sisters growing up at their hip, watching their pain and all the hell that they went through. So that they endeared to me, man. I was cousin, uncle, brother, you know, and they have been my sole support the whole time.
Perry came up in the church, and for a moment he thought he might go into theology. However, he surprisingly didn't have the knack for preaching. This didn't stop him from engaging with the church. However, his plays all follow in the long tradition of the gospel church stage play. While later in his film and TV career, Perry would divert from overtly religious themes and messages more consistently, everything about him in his earliest days as a playwright and his first films,
because he was accused of rape and he wasn't right with God anymore,
is based on the gospel stage play tradition, as well as what's often referred to as the chicken circuit, or more appropriately today, the urban play or theater circuit. In the 1900s, while still under Jim Crow, the Chitlin Circuit was essentially a loose network of theaters and venues where Black music and art and plays could be seen. Not every Black artist at the time was in the Harlem Renaissance. There was only one Duke Ellington, and many Black musicians, playwrights, and performers were only really viable in Black venues and had to travel from venue to venue to make their wares. But the threat of Jim Crow and sundown towns made the perspective of touring music or a film a hazardous activity, so this network of venues became integral in establishing the who's and where's of where Black art could be seen.
Yeah, they talked about this in one of my favorite movies, the Outcast movie, Idlewild, is about this.
For decades.
I mean, one best friend's a mortician's son, and the other one is like a local hustler, and they like, you know, there's a lot of good themes in Idlewild. I thought Idlewild was a modern cinematic classic. And it was about this sort of stuff.
In the South, Midwest, and North.
They talked about this blessing that if you knew the people in the club, in the Black communities and stuff, they were like loyal, and they would show up and they would spend their money at your club, and they would always visit.
East. It eventually earned the moniker of the Chitlin Circuit. I'm not quite sure
I've
why
never heard
and where
the
that
Chitlin
term was first used, but it is highly appropriate for this arts movement and for Tyler Perry in particular because of the nature of what a chitlin is. For those who don't know, chitlins are stewed pig intestines, and they are known for a strong, bad odor that they give off when being cooked
I can't
for
stand the
obvious
smell,
reasons. Chitlins date back to slavery, as they are one of many forms of cuisine created out of necessity by enslaved Africans due to the fact that they were often disallowed from getting the more viable parts of any farm animals. Slave owners would take the key parts of any animals for themselves or for sale and leave the remains to the slaves, who eventually developed modern soul food staples out of them, such as ham hocks and pig feet. However, again, for obvious reasons, chitlins have fell out of favor in terms of soul food delicacies. But it is an example of Black American ingenuity under duress, similar to things I said earlier about
what a beautiful picture.
Black creators trying to enter Hollywood. It is an example of Black people making the most out of what they have and sharing that with others, literally in this case, making salad out of shit. And that's what the chitlin circuit was when Perry emerged on the scene in the early 90s. He was one of many an aspiring Black creative making viable independent art with shoestring budgets, church singers, and a dream. Perry moved from New Orleans to Atlanta in the 90s in pursuit of becoming a playwright and worked on his first play, I Know I've Been Changed, on the side for years until it debuted in 1992
The gospel musical.
with pretty much no success, costing Perry his...
But I mean, if you could be successful in that scene now, you would make so much money, the gospel musical scene. If you could just write actual successful, like, you know, Jesus Christ superstar stuff, you could make so much money now. There's so much money in that.
His life saved.
He's not dumb to try. He's not.
I had worked selling used cars, selling...
Because yeah, even back then he had a vision of how much money and acceptance he could actually get doing that. I would take the swing too if I had that kind of faith, but I don't. Particularly because most Christians I've ever met, they seem to want to play God's job and judge you. So I dislike the Christianity.
I was a bill collector. I worked really, really hard. I did not mind working. I worked really hard, saved my income tax check.
I abide it or whatever. There's been times in my life when I believed in God, when I was in love, and I thought everything was going to work out. But no, it never ever works out. You know?
I had saved about $12,000 and I moved to Atlanta, and I decided to put all the money into this play called I Know I've Been Changed, my first show. And I thought, I'm going to put this play up. I know it's going to be successful. I know it's going to work. I'm going to see 1,200 people over the course.
No, and they don't tell you this in the art world. Nobody's going to warn you. You build yourself up with your first effort, and you try so hard, and you think that you're going to be this revolutionary thing, and you stepped in, you're like, where are all the fans or whatever, and you put yourself on a pedestal, but it was unlikely for this to be successful if no playwright is successful with their first work. They have to get established first. Nobody throws it happens in movies with stuff like Blair Witch Project, but it almost never ever happens in the playwright world. You have to be established and write like 5 or 10 of them before they'll like sponsor you or tell people to come. So only a rube would have sank their whole life savings into it. That's something you don't do. Like, I didn't become a streamer for a long time until I was financially stable. And I wasn't financially stable until I had disability money. And if you're not financially stable, I don't recommend being an artist or a musician at all. I would say at all. It is destructive to your lifestyle. You end up a drug addict or something fucked up. I don't really know. But it's like, if you don't have stable income, you don't really have business being an artist. And honestly, and don't expect it to come from your art. Not the first 5, 6, 10 years. Depending on how talented you are. You might be Billie Eilish and take the fuck off, but remember, they keep saying that Billie Eilish is an industry plant from a family full of, established musicians and stuff, and it's not a mistake. And no, I don't think it is. So an industry plant can probably fire up there to the moon like a meteor because they're just good, like Billie. But it's very, very rare. Usually they cut 2 to 3 albums before they make mainstream success. And this guy You see this in the band world too. They'll throw all of theirs. They think that they're just going to change the world with one album. So for like 4 years, they go through this. And I've done it. I've been there. I've done it several times actually with other bands too, where like I lived with them, or I was in the creative process with them, or I was making music with them, or I was singing with them, or I was in a sister band with their bassist or the drummer, and we all lived in the same house, and stuff like that. And they would play piano and I would sing and shit like this, and we would play chess and all types of shit. And like without stable income, you can't really not sync. And if you're syncing and you're an artist or a musician type, there's no worse depression in the world. When you can't pay your rent and you've been cast out on the streets and you're living in some artist commune and you didn't make it and you spent the last 4 years making an album that either flopped or just didn't get the exposure or whatever it is you need. You've got CDs that you give out to people out of the trunk of your car, but it's starting to become like sort of a little bit of a joke, right? It's like, oh, that CD from that band that never made it or whatever, and it's funny, but it's not really funny to you. And and that's it happened to me, and we all moved on, like all except for my drummer. My drummer was good enough. He was good enough, but we weren't good enough to make a living out of it, and we tried like hell too. I'm sure it broke my sister band's hearts that they didn't make it. I guarantee it, because they built like 5 really good albums that I actually really love, but they still didn't make it because they're just not that they're a little too progressive rock for the radio. They don't conform. They're not they're not radio friendly unit shifters, and they don't make music like that. And so what do you do if you don't make it? And in the meantime, all of them got cocaine addictions, methamphetamine addictions. All of us were alcoholics. A lot of us had slept with too many people. It was depressing to live in the house, but you didn't have enough money to even contribute $100 towards rent or something like that. It was depressing sometimes. You'd be like, oh my God, I spend all of my money on beer. I ride around on a bicycle because I can't afford a car. I move from party to party to party to party to party to party. I don't ever stop partying. I partied for 13 years or something like that. Great big party for some reason. I don't know why. We just decided that it was all tomorrow's parties for about 10 years, and it just was. And we did like freak out on, fucking crazy hipster shit like fucking Velvet Underground. And we lived the Velvet Underground essentially. A lot of my friends were bi and were coming out. Just kind of crazy. It was an interesting time. The drugs, were still strong. They weren't cut and they weren't worthless. And, and it was just an interesting time. And at no point did we ever think that it wasn't going to be like 4 albums before anybody ever paid attention to us. And we did stuff like win Battle of the Bands and get free recording contracts and stuff like this, but we didn't but we weren't playing for them. We were playing for us. And I still do that. I still make music that only I think I could listen to. I'm sure it actually bothers people when I put my music on my stream, because I know it's not radio friendly and I know it's not what they want to hear. I had somebody tell me they really liked one of my songs, and I was like, oh, that's cool, because that's a surprise to me. I don't make this music to be appealing to anybody. I don't think the subject matter is that good. It's kind of depressing, fucked up blues trap. And I was like very surprised when somebody said they liked it. I was like, well, okay, cool, because wow, to me it probably sounds like, I was thinking that to other people it probably sounds like a bunch of screeching rats over some slow crappy trap beat and some dude who sings in monotone really badly like a meme or whatever. Not monotone, but just all the kind of like, I've got melody, but it's not particularly good. And I'm not trying to appeal to anybody, so I'm not singing earworms. I'm trying to sing poetry that I wrote, because I really would like to get that stuff across to the world, you know? And so I know that my first album, I'm going to work on it really. I already have worked on it really hard. I put like 6-7 songs out there or something like that now. And it'll be 15 before I just, you know, put it all in a playlist and forget that I did it. But I mean, I am going to like write an album, and it's going to take me 5, 10 years, 15 years, maybe something. I don't really know. It's already been like 3.5 or something since I started. And I know that my album will never go anywhere unless I just, for some reason, set myself on fire, and overnight I'm a good streamer with a good reputation. But I don't think that's how it played out for me. I don't think I have a good reputation. I think most people are like that jackass who keeps his chat off or whatever. And I think most of the players that meet me in the games don't like me. And I think a lot of the friends that I used to have are maybe actually regretful that they were friends of mine and stuff like this. And I don't care. You know, I don't care what they think. So all the time I think, wow, it must be interesting to care about a reputation in the business, because I just don't care about that. You know, I don't give a flying fuck what somebody thinks. I just wrote a song called... Oh God, what was it? I wrote it today. What was it? It's this will be my next song, and it's I don't even remember what I called it. It's yeah, what is this? It's like being the smartest and the stupidest person in the room are the same thing. That's an interesting concept. And I thought it wise is sitting there. That's a really good song, but I don't remember what song I wrote today. I did write it though. I wrote it. If I open my notepad, it'll probably open it. Where's my notepad? It should be on my fucking thing. It's not. No, it's not. Open my notepad. And on it will be the song I just wrote called Suit Dummies, where I'm going to take a shot at the fucking suit dummies of the fucking world. I'm just going to take a shot at them, and I don't care. I don't care if anybody likes the song or not. Doing it for yourself is quite refreshing, actually. I used to have to make music to try to appeal to other people. So I tried to sing way better. I tried to be some pop grungy jump around guy that liked grunge and jumped on the stage a lot with bright clothes and stuff like this. And I just don't do other people's pleasure anymore. I'm doing this for me, bitch. Me. This guy, he did his first, what do you call it? Gospel musical, because he's trying to make that for somebody else. And that's the problem. You shouldn't ever make art for somebody else. You should make art for yourself.
Course of a weekend, I'd put all the money.
But I think that he just kept taking swings probably till he figured out some form of himself that would sell as a formula, like Medea.
And I rehearsed it.
It turned out to be something freaky, like him dressing up like a woman or whatever. That's not freaky. It's just, you know, but it's like, before he was socially accepted and before he made his money, he had to change his approach so drastically that he took up cross-dressing, which is fine. But it just seems like the actions of a desperate man to me, and the fact that this was a soul-crushing failure to him, that his first album didn't make it or whatever, his first gospel musical. And I'm sorry, a good artist, they're not writing shit for other people, so then whose heart's going to be broken except for yours if you don't like your first effort? That's how a real artist talks, and that's how a real musician talks. You're not making shit for other people. If you are, then, you know, you probably lost your way, frankly. You should want to listen to your own album. You shouldn't think, oh, I couldn't listen to my own stuff. What was the weird, trippy thing that the YouTube kept pointing out recently? It was like Bruce Willis never watched any of his own films, which is something a lot of the world can't comprehend or understand. But who is it? Maybe it was Harrison Ford or something. Like Harrison Ford didn't like Star Wars or something. I forget what it is, but there's like tons of weird stuff like this where these people, they don't even like to watch their own work, which I don't understand.
I hung the lights. I had everything ready to go. and nobody showed up. There were 30 people in the audience, and I knew all of them.
But
That's a good thing. That's a good thing, though.
Up. He continued to work on and refine it while building up his resources.
He says it like it's a shame that he's not taking a bow to a bunch of randos. But I'd rather be in a room with 30 people that I know than 30 randos, you know. And he seems to think that the 30 randos are higher value than, or the 3,000 randos is a higher value than those 30 people in the room who know who you are and like you. I don't think so. I think the people who are in the room who know you and like you are of higher value. But it was obvious from the start, right after his first effort, and he got destroyed probably in his own mind. There's a phrase for this. It's called experiencing ego death, where you either give up willingly who you are because you don't like who you are, and you experience ego death, and you don't feel like you have a self anymore, and you start over. That's one way to look at it, which I'm sure he's done in his life before. But another way to look at ego death is experiencing such crazy heights or such crazy lows that you don't have like a self-appraisal that's accurate anymore. You can't even appraise yourself as a living being anymore. You're just like this lost person who without an ego, who has to rebuild their entire personality and their entire approach and all that stuff. And this happens, and you know, ego deaths happen, but that's probably what happened to him when he realized that, you know, that blowing all of his life's money into it didn't work. He probably experienced ego death, and somebody like him, he probably needs 6 or 7 ego deaths. He probably needs 6 or 7 of them in his lifetime.
Just to the point of being homeless.
I know some people like this who just are relentless. They're fucking relentless. They're just going to keep pushing to get whatever it is that they want. And if they have to rehash and fucking, you know, jerk it to work it, or fucking, you know, fake it to make it or whatever, it doesn't matter. They'll often be gay for pay or stuff like this. It's insane. They don't care. They'll do whatever it takes to get to that fucking dream at the end of their fucking rainbow, whatever that means to them. Some of it's success, some of it's fame, some of it's clout, some of it's power or politics or whatever, right? And I know some people like this. I don't know famous rich people, but I know type A personality drug dealers and such that are very powerful people. And yeah, a lot of those people, they experience ego death too. They'll understand it when they lose their empire. It happened to me. If you lose your empire or whatever, I experienced ego death one time because overnight I didn't think about it. I just didn't think about this possibility of my business, but it happened to me, and it affected not only me, but a whole bunch of people around me. I was bankrolling so many people and around me, girls and stuff like this, not for like sexual purposes, but just helping friends. I was like being a drug dealer who helped their friends with dope and rides and food and help all the time, you know, and I wasn't buying something with it. I was just helping them, you know. And because I felt like I had fast money, so I used it. And I learned that if you build your empire on somebody else's turf, or not, a better word would be, if you build a Jenga empire out of somebody else's blocks and then it topples, you only have yourself to blame. I did it one time when I built an internet business off of Craigslist, and I just didn't think that the government could step in, and often businessmen don't think about this, but the government stepped in and did something good, which was ending all of the drug dealing and ending all of the back page sex sales and human trafficking that was happening on Craigslist personals. But this also crippled the lower class, because a bunch of us were drug dealers and hookers on Backpage and Craigslist and stuff. All the bad dudes were with records were drug dealers, and all the girls were prostitutes and shit who were drug addicts. And it was they call this the game. That's what the game actually is. It's a bunch of people who have records, so they can't actually work, so they hustle all the time. And the girls that they hang out with, that they turn into drug addicts who end up selling themselves. And that's the game. if you've never been there, you wouldn't know how to define it how I just did it. That's what the game is. That's how a white person describes the game. That is how a white guy would describe the game. That is what the game is. It's insane. And if you've been there, you know it, and you don't shame them. You're their friend. You're not their enemy. You don't care what they do with their life, their body, their time, or their money. You don't care. And yeah. And so, when you get up there, you begin to realize, so I began to realize that I had built an empire off somebody else's work, which was Craigslist. And on top of this, Craigslist was also completely culpable to the government's whims, such as shutting down Craigslist personals overnight. Like overnight, no warning, just, hey, your culture's gone now. If you used it for 20 years, it doesn't fucking matter. You can't go back to Craigslist personals and get laid anymore or deal drugs or do whatever the shit that we used to do on Craigslist personals, And so overnight, my magic phone dried up because my magic phone wasn't a magic phone. It was a Craigslist ad that I placed 5 or 6 times with burner accounts over and over and over again, connected to my Text Now number. That's how you be a drug dealer in America. And the Text Now number, was unsafe, but, you could use Signal if you're actually doing something kind of higher weight or something that could put you in big boy prison. Otherwise, you don't drive around with a stash because you're just going to get rolled by pigs. So I took rides wherever I went, and it was just an interesting turn and burn culture. And what happened? The Craigslist shut down overnight. The government stepped in and was like, no more Backpage, no more Craigslist personals. And that was the right thing for the government to do, but it wasn't the right thing for me. I lost my business overnight because what kept my business alive up to that point, and I had a thriving business that I worked up to $3,300 a day on re-up, which is like, I get to keep like 1,700 of it or something like that. The other 1,500 is like re-up or whatever. It's hard to do the math until you know what you're buying, and etc. But and I was doing well, but I was also spending a lot of money to make money. It was hard, and I worked long hours, and I was dedicated to it, and they knew it too. Everybody involved around me knew that I was set like a movie character. I was like dedicated to my lifestyle. They're like, you're on the hustle and the grind. You want to free not only yourself but us, don't you? And it's like, yes, I do. I want to make everybody around me self-sufficient, And so Craigslist shut down personals, and my business was based around revolving new customers in, because they all fuck up on methamphetamine and they disappear for months, or they plague you every day all day long and they're annoying, one or the other. And so, and you want the ones that plague you all day long, but you want them to be sane enough not to not to prevent you from sleeping and stuff. But overall, you want the chain customers like that. But what is the real heart and soul of a thriving drug deal business is keeping new customers rolling in to get them more addicted and buying your product and stuff. How do you do that without being a pusher on the playground, essentially, or like down on the corner or whatever, selling crack to them boys or whatever? How do you avoid doing it like everybody else does it? You get on Craigslist, you put up an ad saying, I've got Tina, are you a plumber who's complaining of empty pipes and stuff like this? Shit like that. I got Tina or whatever, come talk to Tina. And I would sell Tina, Christina, crystal meth. And when they shut down personals, I kept the same 50 clientele that I had had for 3.5 years, but I had no way of getting new clientele in without taking much more risk. I had to agree to doing nastier things for cartel people and stuff like this, that they would have to provide me clientele, because it was like, without Craigslist personals, what do I do? Go down to, I had already done it in my lifetime before and got caught for that and shit like that. What do I do? I can't go down to the fucking downtown and sling rock on the fucking corner. I'm going to get rolled and end up in federal prison. I can't do that. I'm not stupid. I'm not Breaking Bad. I'm not Combo. I'm not getting shot on the block either as a white boy either. I'm not doing that. I'm not stupid. So that shit's unacceptable. So what do I do? I approaching it like the white boys, on fucking, whatever. So When the clientele didn't dry up, I kept going, but very lackadaisically for another year and a half. And my friends and my girlfriend began to really value this, that we could pull in sometimes $200-$300 in a day doing zero work but a phone call. And it's not like you could do it every day. And I didn't do it every day because it's dangerous. You know what I'm saying? It's fucking dangerous. These people don't care about you. They'll toss your name in a second. They don't care about you. So the more you do it, the more likelihood of something bad happening. So it's dangerous to do it. And every time you get a little bit more scared. You're like, oh God, how long can I just keep dodging bullets before somebody, calls a cop or robs me or shoots me? I don't know. So, but occasionally I would just pull in like $375 and dope, and sometimes like free rides and shit like this. And my girlfriends, they would be like, "You are amazing. You can pull like a week's paycheck in an hour." And it was an aphrodisiac. I was I'm not good at money, but I'm good at making money when I can sell dope or whatever. So they could see that I could generate like $375 in an hour if it was like a lucky day. And this is gobsmacking to people who think of 2-week paychecks as being $750. When you pull 375 in an hour, they're like, what the fuck? You're like Superman. That's how they treat you. They're like Superman. They're like, you're Superman. You can pull $400 in an hour. And it's like, yes, I can, but it's putting my life at risk, my freedom at risk. That's why it pays so much money. And they're like, yeah, but you can pull $300. And it's like, yes, I can, but I had to spend $60 to do it. So it's not even like I made 300, I did, or whatever, 375, I made 310. And they're like, yeah, I know. So it's just crazy. It's like weird. And then you see these deals come across and you can see that you can take advantage of the desperation of these customers that have known you for years but don't talk to you all the time. And they're like really desperate when they call you. And they're like, if you help me, I'll pay you more. And it's like, well, yeah, if you give me $140, I'll get you a fucking an 8-ball if you really, if you really want, but you're going to have to pay me $50 extra. I have to go across the town in a taxi and meet somebody at 3:45 in the morning in a fucking motel room. And I'm exhausted. I've been up for 3.5 fucking days or whatever, selling dope to you 16 times or whatever. So it's like, yeah, I can do that, but it's risky. All of it's risky and stuff. So the risk has to be worth it. And it's all this stuff that you have to calculate. So overnight, I lose all that. And I lost the girlfriend, I lost the money, I lost the prestige, I lost all of it. And it just didn't occur to me that Craigslist personals would disappear overnight. It just wasn't the concept that I thought, could happen. Nobody thought it could happen. Nobody I knew thought it could happen. It was like something that just, imagine if somebody just shut down YouTube or something. I mean, that's kind of what it was like. It was like, oh my God, you wake up and a way of life that you've had for 10 years is gone. It's just kind of crazy. So, and that was my thing. And so, but after that, I experienced ego death. I was like, well, I took the swing as Frank Wright, and I tried to be a drug dealer, and I played all the tricks, and I double-crossed other fucking drug dealers and sold them out for being rapists and shit like this. I lived the life. I took my swing. I got up to about $3,500 a day before it became way too dangerous. Like I was making way too much of a name for myself. And so it was like, all right, I'm going to stop now. And I would take these 3-month breaks, and they would all get mad. They'd be like, where are you, man? You've been gone for weeks. And it's like, sorry, it just got too hot. What would you do? They would ask me, like, where have you been? It's too hot. What would you do? I got somebody who stole my phone. I got somebody on the streets who doesn't like me. I got a man who tries to kill me whenever he sees me. It's just too hot. If he catches me up in some kind of fist fight to prevent him from beating my ass to death, they might bust me if I have methamphetamine on me and hold me in prison for 10 years. And that's just because he wants to come beat my ass randomly for no reason, just like the stream sniper. No fucking reason. So like, or I guess, well, I talk shit, so I suppose you could call that a reason, but I didn't go out of my way to ever screw some stream sniper. I've never gone out of my way to harm them or cause them any kind of negativity at all. So like, so to me, it's just another shithead who's completely like a holy hand grenade that can't stop exploding, harming everybody else around them except themselves. And it's stupid. And that's what the guy was like who I put in jail, and that's who I'm dealing with now. And it's fucking stupid. And I hate it. And so, and that sort of shit happened to me more too. That sort of dumb shit happened to me more when they see that you aren't paying the normal costs that everybody else does. When they see that all the girls twerk for you and you have the hottest girl in goddamn Colorado, full blown. Like when they see that that you're doing well, they don't like that, and they start trying to beat your ass and shit like this. It's insane. It's until you've been there, you wouldn't understand. They try to come take your shit. They come and try and take the girlfriend. They come and try and take the money. They come and try and take the car. It's fucking stupid. You have to be very careful around people. So the reality of his gospel musical record, his first album, being a success is so low that only a crazy person should ever fucking try for that, to spend your whole life savings or whatever, all the money you've got, and spend an entire year or 2 years or something making something that completely flops. That's not something a normal artist does. They actually weigh the consideration of spending that much time and that much money, and they don't do stuff like that because they know they're gonna wreck and burn. Because it's like, if something's good, it's good. You can't force it to be good, which is what Tyler Perry did all of his career.
In his car for a second.
He was funny. He was an excellent cross-dresser. He was hilarious,
6 years later, he brought it back with a vengeance to sell out crowds, giving him enough reason.
Yeah, I know I've been changed, right? Yeah, I believe you started putting on women's clothing. Is that what it's about? I guarantee it is.
Sources to eventually rent out the legendary Fox Theater, which he also sold out, and gave him more resources, catapulted him to the top of the chitlin circuit and really beyond it. In I Know I've Been Changed, we pretty much see...
I told you. You see everything that you saw in Medea is him as a woman. I knew it. I was like, he was cross-dressing, wasn't he? Even in the first thing.
That we
it's
think
fine. I don't nothing wrong with transvestites at all. Got no issue with trans. I really don't. Any form of it. It's all spectrum. I got no issue with any of it. I'm just saying it's weird that he coded this into all of his work. The older, the man was not fat, but it is sexist to portray the African, BAP lady as 350 pounds. It's kind of sexist. It's sexist, and it's bad for fat women, and it's bad for body image and stuff. It's like the stuff that he was doing, like the clumps. I'm not so sure the clumps was really that good of a thing.
With Tyler Perry
the clumps definitely glorified fatness. It did in every single way.
It's a story that focuses on issues of abuse. And
that wasn't so good,
surviving.
I thought Nutty Professor was fine, but that also was another fucking movie where he was making fun of fat people. Something about it, Eddie Murphy, he just really thought fat people should be made fun of.
Sexual trauma, addiction, and of course how God can solve all these things.
If you put on a woman's dress and you start singing musicals. It's like Jesus Christ Superstar, except you're Jesus Christ Superstar, basically.
It's a musical, which has always been a key factor in the gospel play tradition, something that never reemerged in Tyler's films until...
Yeah, it's weird that the gospel scene seemed to want to accept his desire to cross-dress and be a diva on a fucking, on a stage. Usually the gospel scene isn't going to be that cool with that. you know? When I think of Christians, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I guess Medea did well, though. Medea did well.
Recently, from what I'm told, it stars several extremely talented big...
it's been so long since I've seen Tyler Perry's Medea. It was so long ago now, like 16 years ago or something like that, right? But there's got to be this weird moment, and I know I've seen the movie, but I don't remember it at all, although I remember it being uproariously funny. Because I do have kind of an African American sense of humor. I find the same sort of hood movie stuff funny as them, and so it was a very funny movie to me. But I'm sure there's this moment at the beginning of Medea, the first time you ever see the first one, because he did like 5 of them or something, didn't he? But like in the first one, there's going to be this scene where he steps out first time in the full-blown woman's dress. And I swear to God, the Christians that I know, they're going to walk out at that point. Not all of them, But I mean, they're going to, and there seem to be a lot of movies that kind of push this whole idea. Like Sister Act was kind of like that. Here's an ex-stripper, drug dealer, ex-prostitute lady, and she's turning things around, and instead of going to jail, she's a detective now, and she's spying on a convent. Or whatever it is. I forget what the fucking plot to Sister Act was, which is Whoopi Goldberg's really big films. And that was kind of a whole thing about, dressing up as a nun, right?
Voice black women who fall in that tradition of church belters, women who can bring the house down from the pulpit, think Patti LaBelle, Fantasia, Jennifer Hudson, etc., but really probably better. These are the people that inspired them, right? There's no Medea yet, though. Perry does play Joe, while not exactly the same character we would see in Medea movies in the future. He's still very much the same character, which is something that'll come up later. But if you watch the handful of clips that are around, you can kind of see the early version of what Tyler Perry would become.
That's Tyler Perry!
His next play
was he even wearing a fat suit? I don't think he was. I think he was actually fat.
As far as I can tell, seems to be an adaptation of T.D. Jakes' self-help book, Woman Thou Art Loosed. Now, the book was a piece of self-help nonfiction, but the play is a story of a black woman with a traumatic past, substance abuse, abusive partner, yada, yada, yada. At least I think it's kind of hard to verify because the original work of nonfiction has been reimagined so many different times. It has so many different spin-offs, and actually
this story travels the whole world.
Two, it seems, different movies. So I'm not going to say a lot about it here because I don't quite know exactly what this play was, but it is
I've never seen it.
The second play he brought to the stage.
I don't watch a lot of plays. It's not my scene.
It was also highly successful.
My best friends, however, they love musicals.
Probably further entrenched him.
Okay, my friend L and his wife, they would sing Shrek to each other perfectly word for word.
In the larger community.
Hate Shrek. I don't hate Shrek. I don't hate Shrek. I think it's a great movie. I just didn't worship it. I did not worship Shrek, and I did not worship Toy Story. And I worship shit. I was a big worship kid. I worship Star Wars or whatever. But I just did not worship Shrek, and I did not worship fucking Toy Story. And I've never met a fucking boomer my age who doesn't run for the hills when they hear that. And after that, I'll tell them I don't like Game of Thrones at all. And they're like, what? And I'd be like, I don't like The Walking Dead at all. I like the cinematography, or sorry, the what's it called? The the anime. I like the anime, the original Walking Dead anime. Not the anime, but the manga, right? The original manga, the original artwork stuff. But I didn't like the television show at all. And I really didn't like the video game portrayals. I just didn't think the games themselves were that well made. I thought the story in the Walking Dead season 1 was good, and I did think it was a really good game. It had these moments that blow you away, like when you're riding in the cop car at the start of the game. And then there's a crash, isn't there? Yeah, some zombie causes you to crash, and you're in the back of the cop car and you're like chained up. And then the zombie comes, and that was a fucked up scene. It still stands out in my mind. It was good. It was really good. But then it didn't stay that good. It got kind of boring.
Of black church play, black church.
It needed to keep firing at that cylinder, I think, but it didn't.
In general spaces. His third play was I Can Do Bad All By Myself, and it's also where he finally introduces the character of Medea to the world. Medea was actually intended to be a small role in the play that he did along with another actress. But when
the playwright people, they all cross-dress because they have to play roles that they can't fill the spots for because there's either not enough money or the actor's sick that day or whatever. So they end up playing other people's roles, and that's how they end up being cross-dressers.
That actress no-showed a show. Perry
so he just fills in for her, but then he begins to realize how much he likes wearing a dress.
Ended up having to rewrite this role.
I would say he came by it fairly honestly. You know, I'm sure some of it comes from other sources, but you know, if you're gonna become a transvestite, I suppose being a playwright is probably a fairly honest way to come around that, you know?
Why? And as the show continued, this thing that he came up with out of
It's like he didn't go looking for it, it just happened to him.
necessity at the last minute was so effective with the crowd that he ended up reworking the entire play to have as much Medea in it as possible, and
What?
an icon was born.
He started out with Daddy Joe, and I know it's been changed. And then he moved to the character Medea. The first stop we did was in Chicago. It was Medea and another artist that was supposed to be in the play.
Sold all these tickets out in Chicago for her to be there, and she never showed up. So all these people come in looking for her, and she wasn't there.
It was really scary. I had to go on stage and do the Medea lines and her lines.
He got bigger laughs.
Well, I look today.
Oh, you look nice too, Miss May.
Thank you so much, Robin.
By the time we got to the end of the weekend, the theater was full and everybody was hungover. He had completely worked the play. Medea had become the star.
I Could Do Bad All By Myself is again the story of a black woman suffering abusive relationship, trauma, drug abuse, sexual abuse, etc., and of course, ending with God giving her the strength to get over it. And
the preacher's wife. We've seen it in so many different forms and so many different ways. Whitney Houston was obsessed with it. This idea that like maybe God could get you out of your terrible like fast lifestyle and cocaine use. And the answer is no, God won't get you out. God will not save you from a terrible cocaine collapse. No, God's right along with you for the whole ride.
Editing this because this is,
but they kept trying to show it. They're like, here's the preacher's wife, here's the other preacher's wife movie, because there was two of them, and I can't even remember what the other one's called. But there was two of them, and they were really genuinely fucking good, wholesome movies that I really loved. There was The Bodyguard. That was another one that was a really good, fucking movie. And it's all about redeeming some singer or redeeming some drug addict or something and getting them, addicted to church and singing and being positive again. And we saw so many different versions of this, like 15 or 20 different movies came singing through. Sister Act 1, Sister Act 2. The lady's a drug addict or something. And I didn't know they were all stealing from Medea. It's all Tyler Perry's. He is a genius, I think. You couldn't argue that he isn't good. I would say he's a genius intelligence-wise, maybe. But in terms of artistic stuff, I think he is a genius. Kind of like how Kanye's a genius, even though we don't want to admit it.
50% of all of Tyler Perry's films.
But, Kanye's not a genius. He's a fucking moron. But, when it comes to music, his talent is actually there. It's always been. He shaped the hip hop scene for so long, and people don't want to admit that. But I mean, he did shape the. I mean, I don't know if we would have had Auto-Tuner without him. I mean, some people probably want to blame him for that, honestly. But I don't think I would miss Auto-Tuner if we didn't have it.
More.
And it makes a lot of shitty music sound a lot better.
And a unique, complex aspect of his legacy, which again stems from his connecting to the Black church. The Black church is a unique, important, and very powerful cultural force historically among Black Americans, and this goes all the way back to slavery. Churches were initially the only places many enslaved Africans were allowed to collect together in private without overseers or watchful eyes of slave owners.
Yeah, because if they had banned the churches, there would have been open revolt and blood and death in the streets.
And this led them to be unofficial community organizing spaces. Many a slave rebellion or escape was planned in a church pew. Fast forward to Jim Crow into the civil rights movement, and that tradition is still in place. In fact, at that time, the church was an extremely powerful institution, not just spiritually, but politically, as it was the Southern religious tradition of activist pastors like Martin Luther King who fueled the civil rights movement. However, as with many aspects of Black culture going into the 70s and 80s, there was a great shift that would make the church more friendly to a Black capitalist message and less engaged with any type of...
Yeah, the 70s and the 80s were good for God, in the 60s and stuff. It was really good for spirituality.
Of resistance and
60s, 70s, and even the 80s kind of were pretty good time for spirituality, I would say. By the 90s, it has sort of fallen off, and we had bad religion,
organizing that churches were
pointing out how bad they could actually be.
prosperity gospel became the theme.
Because that says that I'm right there next to my miracle. I'm right there, right at the door of my due season.
Mega churches began to emerge. This also coincides with the crack epidemic, and the church took
Baptasia
on almost like a triage space for many black women who had nowhere else to go. And we also saw many black men abandon the church either because of drug use,
crack or drug sales or whatever,
or because of crime, or really a multitude of reasons. I'm really glossing over things there, but just understand at a certain point the church stopped being a communal space and started being highly dominated by black women in terms of numbers, but not power. Not at the pulpit, mind you, but in the pews. The black church was and still is a patriarchal institution, but it had lost its political role and had become more of a balm during difficult times, providing solace to downtrodden black women who were nursing addicted family members, praying for sons and grandsons, and trying to avoid mistreatment from the society at large. And they were doing this all while still doing their best to uphold patriarchal frameworks in their own way. Hence this transition of who made up the church never being reflected in who ran the church. To this day, only about 10% of black churches are ran by black women. And this also reflects in Tyler Perry's success and his ability to constantly rely on that audience for resources, even when he's not putting the most into his art. While there's virtue in some of Tyler Perry's work that we will discuss, Perry was not serving black women a healthy media diet with his plays and films. However, he was serving that population like no one else had. This is another challenge we have to face when criticizing Tyler Perry. Regardless of how we might feel about his work, he came
or what he did, but what he did was valuable to the nation
by providing a service in black media that no one really was or seemed to be fully invested in. And specifically for working class black women that have found themselves erased.
People need entertainment. They have hard, long lives with like drudgery jobs, and they need something like this to look forward to when they come home on a Thursday night, you know?
Tyler Perry.
The television used to be so much better. Television used to be so much better than it is now.
He targeted them and centered them in his narrative.
We're never going to have a Breaking Bad ever again. I was so surprised when we got Better Call Saul, and I still wouldn't even say Better Call Saul was of the caliber that Breaking Bad was.
Black women as a whole.
We're not going to have another House MD. We're not going to have all my favorites. We're not going to have another BoJack Horseman. Maybe, but I don't think so. They say Pluribus is good. I don't know.
Were struggling. But when there was representation for black women in the 90s and early 2000s, you'd be lucky if they in any way resembled what a lot of black women looked like or were experiencing in the world.
If I just keep making money on these games.
Consider how black men felt about it.
Like if I just keep I know that I don't need any other games kind of, because if I just keep making money on Mortal and Eve and FFXI, I will be happy. I don't care if other games don't come or whatever. I just know that if I continue to fatten my pockets on these three things, even if it is a private server, I know that I will be a happy gamer. Something about fattening my pockets all the time in these three games, it's like something that's really good for my soul or whatever it is. So I just keep doing faction warfare. I don't care what people think about me. Somebody just cussed at me in the chat or whatever. Yeah, I'm happy. I don't care.
Hip-hop in the 80s and 90s and how hip-hop gave black men this way to imagine themselves in the world that nothing had done up until that point. And in doing that, often created barriers for black women to appreciate it in the same way. There was engagement with black women's experiences in a lot of media regarding white supremacy and poverty and patriarchy. Think of like the women of Brewster Place, Crooklyn, Claudine. But they were few and far between and tended to blink when it was time to really get into the ugly nitty-gritty of what some black women were experiencing and wanted to see. When it was time to show the raw, ugly reality that some black women faced at the hands of black men, In this time, in the crack epidemic, in the 94 crime bill era, a lot of black male filmmakers may be held back as to not to contribute to further demonization of black men in the media, a complex challenge that black women have had to navigate for generations. But Perry had no such trepidation. In fact, you might even say he reveled in it. Perry was willing to put out there everything that many black women were going through: physical, emotional, and sexual violence, often at the hands of black men, sometimes even at the hands of other black women. Struggles with addiction and self-worth, fear and pain on motherhood, and lots and lots and lots of trauma. Perry gave voice to this in a way and at a scale that no one else would early on. And he added the Christian undertones to it, so he ended up replicating the type of emotional and physiological release that would often keep these same women coming to the congregation every Sunday for church. Further, something Perry doesn't get enough credit for is his maybe not necessarily robust, but insightful class analysis. Perry centers his films around working class and impoverished women's experiences. When we look at the greater landscape for black women-oriented media and entertainment, it tends to skew toward a petite bourgeois image. Shows like Insecure, Girlfriends, Living Single, Being Mary Jane, etc. all focus mostly on a middle and upper middle class black woman or something aspirationally connected to that class position. This is not a bad thing, and in many ways, it's meant to counteract much of the other ways that black women are represented in our media. Black women on the whole are the most educated population in the country, so there's good reason to have such representation. However, this simply isn't all black women or even the majority. Most black women, like most Americans, do not have a 4-year college degree. Most black women, like most Americans, have moderate to conservative beliefs, and black women are more religious and attend church more than any other racial or gender demographic. These were women that were constantly invisibilized by black media, even black media made by black people or other black women. And Tyler changed that and made them the center of his media all the way to the bank. I can argue that Tyler's work was, on the whole, still very damaging to the image of black women in this country, and I will. But you can't argue that he filled a void that no one else was filling, and he should be commended for that. Perry never purported to be August Wilson. He never imagined himself as a visionary auteur. He's always presented himself as the workman's creative, making a lot out of a little, making soul food out of scraps, and that's valuable. This may sound blasphemous to some, but Tyler Perry is closer to William Shakespeare in terms of the role he plays with his plays in society than, say, a James Baldwin. As wild as that comparison might seem to you, what people often forget about Shakespeare is that what made him a big deal in his time was his ability to bring together everyone for his plays to be consumed both by royalty and nobility, but also by the peasants and commoners that had to save up money to go to his shows. And Perry pretty much did the same. Even if you were a second-generation HBCU student like my wife, you likely still had women in your family that remind you of the Medea character. You probably weren't too many degrees removed from a cousin or neighbor who had a substance abuse issue that went undiscussed. And you probably had some memories of being in a church pew all day on a Sunday. Tyler's plays were fodder for Black Twitter conversations before Black Twitter was a thing. I remembered, even as a Muslim turned atheist in Atlanta in the early 2000s, hearing about his plays on my college campus on a regular basis, at the local malls, the barbershops, even my radio and music internships with other college-educated black folks. They were still talking about how much they loved his plays. Tyler had done something special that everyone could get behind at this point, something that, as I said, was really hard to do. He had gotten rich and successful completely off of us. And if you can say that, pretty much actually no one can. Remember that for later. The Chitlin circuit was never supposed to be this lucrative or create this type of cultural phenomenon, and it didn't. Perry wasn't the first pew baby to make a play and hire some gospel singers to act in it, and he won't be the last. I remember many people trying to capture the success of the Chitlin Circuit stage play as he emerged as this phenomenon. But it makes me think of that line from Jay-Z where he says, I heard motherfuckers saying they made Hov say, okay, so make another Hov. You couldn't. It could only be a man as driven and as uniquely talented, and I mean that sincerely, uniquely talented as Tyler Perry. Before a single movie, before a TV deal, before the massive state-of-the-art studio, just off his stage plays, Tyler had made himself a multi-millionaire purely off catering to the black church and the black women who populated it. By 2005, after numerous touring plays, he had grossed close to $150 million between ticket sales, video, and DVD sales, along with merchandise. However, as inspiring as that is, I can't not be a bit cynical about how this relationship.
He's also a goddamn bona fide transvestite star, a superstar. He's a bona fide transvestite superstar. I gotta say,
worked to shield Perry from.
He did wonders for the trans scene.
Criticism. Whenever Perry is called out for a multitude of good reasons, he is quick to say something along the lines of, "My audience is all I care about," or "People don't care about the population I'm telling stories about, so why should I care about their opinions?" And these things are in some cases true, but they don't change the fact that Tyler Perry was a hack, right? Going back then, there are countless accusations of him stealing from other playwrights, not paying people what he said he was going to pay. The Medea character has been rumored to be stolen from
I
a
hadn't
variety
heard
of
that
people,
stuff.
although I don't agree with that, because first off, that was happening all across black media at the time. We'll get to it. And we have to talk about the fact that he was catering to an audience that simply didn't have the highest standards in their entertainment and really just wanted to see a black man succeed.
No, we don't care.
And he knew it. But
like I like hood films, and one of the things I like about them is they are DIY, and he was definitely DIY.
This really didn't matter because it was still this internal, very black, very Southern success story, and it was only the beginning. So this massive studio backlot is where Perry does all of his work. But this is not where things started. This is actually the fourth piece of property that Perry has called his studio, and obviously the most grand. He started out on Hoke Street in Northwest Atlanta, and then he moved to Krog Street, where the now Krog Street Market is. Then he went to Greenbrier over on the Southwest side, and this was a big deal at the time because he was becoming Tyler Perry, and suddenly he was attaching his grand vision to black people in Atlanta. And the same thing can be said for his current studios in Fort McPherson, which is still on the southwest side of the city, still in a black community, but a much bigger chunk of one. Perry says that he moved so much in part because he wanted capacity and autonomy, and he has it. This is his monument, his playground. So what is he doing with it? What is Tyler actually doing with all of this power? What is he giving us, or to be fair, his core audience with the resources he's amassed?
I have no writer's room. Nobody writes any of my work. Never hungry, and the lights were never off, right? Sickness.
What? You wrote like 70 screenplays?
So I give him that.
You are insane.
And
you are a genius. Like, it's proof is right there, motherfucker. Proof's right there. Nobody writes 70 screenplays. You could say I, in a way, are writing 70 screenplays because by the end of it, I'll have like 30,000 videos or something, 50,000. So you could say in some ways I'm like an endless screenplay writer because I just keep, speaking lines live in real time. But I'm not a screenplay writer like this who was extremely successful. This is the sign of a real bona fide visionary.
And people love it.
Most people, they fake this. He's not faking it. Like, in the end, I don't expect anything that I ever do to be successful. It's just something I don't have. I don't have that. I've been successful as a streamer, but oops, this is gonna be a player. No, it's a mob. What was I gonna say? Yeah, like, and I play different roles. I'm a singer, I'm a gamer, I'm a political commentator, I'm a respawn guy, or what is it called, react content guy. I do drinking. I do all of it. I have a bar mentality. Like I'm my own bartender, my own bar, my own drinker, my own bar stool. It's like, it's like I'm everything and all the pieces in between. I'm my own video editor. I'm my own drug dealer. I'm my own, or whatever, it's not my own drug dealer, but it's like, whatever. So Yeah, I do have a strong work ethic, but the stuff that I do is none of the stuff that I do, except for music, is ever legitimized. Like video games are not legitimized, not really. You got to be Ninja or somebody and win tournaments. It's really hard to do.
My work ethic is insane. I look at myself.
I just don't have the drive to go be that good. I have no desire to stomp in nerds in PvP that bad. I don't have that kind of killer instinct.
Sometimes and go, are you kidding me?
So I have minimal skills with my hands, right? I can
me too.
put together like IKEA furniture. I can do basic stuff. But this was my first time using a saw probably since high school. I wish I could say this is because I was too busy getting a bunch of degrees and being a smarty art Negro, but two of my homeboys here also have advanced degrees and less student loan debt. So yeah, I have no excuse. It's just something I never done. And that's actually really important. I could never do this without them. I would not be here, be in this position without community. I would not have gotten this far without all of you. Part 3, the Tyler Perry.
Yeah, he's gonna make a point about how this guy did all of this on his own, and he doesn't use anybody.
Movie. So now we have to begin to discuss Tyler Perry.
And he's gonna be like, building this store was really, really, really like formative for me because I was able to use my community to help me to do it. What about Tyler is like that? It's not. It's an entirely one-way street.
As a filmmaker leading up to where he is now as a media mogul.
I hate appraising their lives like this. I'm not usually, I view it as almost attack content, basically. Like this guy's almost attacking him. But this guy was a sex pest, wasn't he? Who cares?
And cultural icon. I will not be discussing all his films in this already very long video. There will be a separate...
Oh my God, he went nuts on the Madea stuff. There's Madea's Big Happy Fan. I had no idea there was that many. Tyler Perry's Diary of a Mad Black Woman, the movie. What is that? It's just another Madea. No, other people did work with him. He did work with other people, you know. But he ran the show. He's a showrunner. Tyler Perry's Medea's is in witness protection for whatever reason. She witnesses a crazy crime. A Merry Christmas Medea, Medea Christmas. Oh my God, how many Madea films did you make? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10.
Very long video released on my side channel that
11
is more lighthearted and will create the ultimate Tyler Perry movie tier list. I'll also not be discussing his shows much because there's just too many of them. He's directed, I think,
oh my God,
2,000 episodes of television in the last 20 years. And I can't. This is long enough. We'll discuss the TV stuff a bit later for other reasons, however. Instead, I'm going to discuss what Tyler Perry is as a filmmaker and what his films have to say about him, and conversely, what it is that he wants to say to the world through his films. Earlier, I talked about the state of black media historically and how the fact that black people have always had to filter our desires for art and images that represent us through a white supremacist capitalist framework. And this framework only cares about our art as far as our art is able to make them and the system money, all while also not being too upsetting to the status quo. Even with those constraints, though, we have gotten amazing film and TV from gifted black artists throughout the years.
Eddie Murphy was in a league of his own.
And every so often, we've even gotten radical and provocative work as well. However, at a certain point, things began to shift. The media landscape has changed, not just for black people, but really
Set It Off was provocative as hell.
For everyone. There's a lot of reasons for this. There's the Telecommunications Act, which changed who gets to own media in our country. There's changes in technology, which dictate how we consume media. There's the presidency of Barack Obama, believe it or not, which really shifted the norms of how black people are perceived in media and the ways in which people think black people should be presented in both good and bad ways. And there's just
You know, I never thought about it really, but it's funny how much Obama looks like the Chicken Man from Breaking Bad, Gus Fring. Gus Fring was rocking that Obama look pretty hard.
In the ways in which people think black people should be presented.
Gustavo Fring, that was a good character, but he did look a lot like Obama. There was an Obama thing going on there.
In both good and bad ways. And
it wasn't just Obama, it was Gustavo Fring as well. change things for black people on television, I think.
It is slowly crumbling under the failures of late stage capitalism. So everything is more exploitative, more extractive, and more crappy than it seems like it used to be. Things have changed, arguably for the worse, for a variety of reasons. And one result of this is that someone like Tyler Perry now stands as one of the most powerful figures in media due to his amassed resources, dedicated fan base, and the fact that he is still highly independent from the machine and all the flaws within it. You may look at this as an unfair or maybe inaccurate position to put him in, but no black person has had more capacity to represent the
No, and Medea was a solid, good product that he was allowed to sell, you know, not allowed, but like, allowed's the wrong word. It's just like, you know, he was allowed to sell 20 or 30 times. Not, I would say we basically allowed him, but they kept buying it, which means that he was allowed to make a lot of money off of Medea, like 30 fucking Medea films or whatever it was, like 15, 20 Medea films, which is just insane. It's insane. And because they were good products, they kept buying them for 20 years or something like that.
Interest of black people in the world of media than Tyler Perry. Because
yeah,
of
Tyler Perry
I
does not represent black people. I mean, he does actually. He's a good example of black people. But he's not, like, again, like kind of like the South Park thing. He's not the emperor of black people, though.
Spoke of in the previous section, and it's been like that for the better part of like 20 years. However, in those 20 years,
Medea.
My Chinese friend died from Korea. They put him in a box and put him some rice in it and sent him down the Vietnam River. That was when I was in the war in Iraq.
Watch your glass, big bitch.
Oh my God.
Is she okay?
most of what I'm going to say about Perry's films is going to be focused on his thematic, symbolic, and political elements, or lack thereof. And there's a lot to say there. But first, I want to make it clear that even if Tyler Perry's films didn't feel like minstrelsy, didn't have awful political messages, and spread harmful ideas about black women, black men, and so many other things in between, he'd still be a bad filmmaker on a technical level, and I know this is a very cold take. What is interesting—
No, they were B movies.
No, is that he's always been bad.
Only Medea 1 was a true blockbuster. I think all the rest of them were B movies and cash grabs.
But unlike other filmmakers, he's oddly—
They weren't at the same quality. I know, because I've seen 2 or 3 of them. They weren't the same quality. By the third one, they were kind of like soap opera-y. You know, they weren't. It wasn't like a comedy that was trying to make you laugh a million miles an hour like the first one. The second, by the second, third one, they were like soap operas. They were like kind of dramas at that point. It wasn't even that funny.
Over the years, like the Tyler Perry movies that were distributed by Lionsgate in the mid 2000s and the 2010s are really much better, at least on a technical level, than the slop he's been putting out directly through streaming since around 2015. It's like a unique form of enshittification. If you're not aware, enshittification is a term usually used to talk about social media apps in the tech space, where an app—
God damn, I watched The Social Network finally a couple of days ago. This actor, he really, really bothers me. He just bothers me.
App starts out cool.
Something about him.
Builds up a dedicated user base. Then after it gets enough people, is purposely redesigned to be worse than—
The way that Mark Zuckerberg looks really bothers me. Is he a albino? Because he has the skin of an albino. Ever notice how pale he is? He's pale like a ginger. It's the ginger thing, I guess. It's some kind of genetic thing. He shaves his eyebrows. I've noticed this about him since the congressional inquiries. He's shaved his eyebrows like some kind of weird Madonna thing or something. I don't really know what that's about. He had his weird thing about smoking meats, but I mean, I think that's just his pure, unadulterated appreciation of smoking sausages in his smoker. But it was weird. It was fucking weird. It was such a weird thing. It's kind of like when stupid ass what's his name puts wieners on his hat. It was so oddball and just off the wall weird. It was just so weird. Smoking meats was so weird. And when you see him, you're like, is that a normal human being? And I don't want to point out his appearance. Like, I don't want to shame him for his appearance, but normal human beings don't really look like this. He looks like an actor. He looks like Dada, like Bryce Jenner or something. What's his name? Bryce something. I forget. Brent Spiner or something. I forget the name. But Brent Spiner or something. I forget. But the guy who played Dada, he had kind of a face like this.
And what it was when you started liking it.
And it was a very interesting face.
And the reason for that is because it needs to become more.
Remember Data from Star Trek? Star Trek TNG Data face. Right? Yeah, Data's face is very distinct. See it? Very strong features. And yeah, strong features like that.
Profitable for the app's owners. Think about how Facebook and Twitter are basically unusable at this point to anyone who's just not locked in there because all their friends are there. Now take that and then apply it to Tyler Perry whenever he talks about his core audience not complaining about his movies. This would be a recurring topic, but once Perry recognized that there was nothing he could do wrong in the eyes of his core audience, his response wasn't to serve them with the best films he was capable of making. It was to instead milk them, to use their devotion to his films to
and this is my true core problem with him, is how many Medea films did we need before you know they suck? I think he realized that when Nutty Professor 2 came out and it was an even bigger hit than the first one, he was like, oh, sequels can be really crazy cash grabs that you don't even have to try as hard as you did the first movie. And when Eddie Murphy pulled it off, no problem, and slayed the whole country doing it because Eddie Murphy's actually talented, he thought he could make 20 Medeas. And I'm sorry, but I don't really appreciate that. It kind of seems like you are targeting black people to try to bilk them out of their money, and I don't like that, you know? And it is like he's trying to target black people. It's a shitty thing for a white person to say it, but he kind of targeted black people and tried to get their money out of them. It's like an MLM based at, like, taking advantage of black people, kind of. It's silly, but it is true.
Bigger deals with streaming services and TV networks, all while cutting as many corners as
I don't know about making a fucking career out of a racial identity. I don't know about that. It is what it is. I think he'd probably be like, oh, thank God you don't mention the cross-dressing. He's probably so sick of the cross-dressing, right? They probably relentlessly tease him about the fucking cross-dressing, and he probably really fucking hates it. He built $1 billion career out of that. You would put on a dress too, you know? And, well, maybe not me. I don't know. I don't think I could do that, no. I couldn't dance around like him in a dress trying to be like a gospel singer, dude. I don't know. I don't think so. I'm just not wholesome like that.
Possible to maximize profit, which in turn makes his...
Is he straight? Is he gay? Is he trans? Is he a transvestite? Or is that only just his job? Does he go home and dress up in lingerie every night? What's the deal here? We kind of, spill the tea.
His content much worse.
What's his predilections, because I don't think any of that matters. It's just, I gotta know, is it all an act, or is this who he actually is? Is he actually Medea, or is he actually Tyler Perry? Because I sort of have a thing like this. My name is Skycat. It's an amalgamation of my real life personality and my video game personality. And that's where we get Skycatlive from. And also it's, it's a play on words of an old fantasy novel called the Farseer trilogy. And it's there's several things why my name is in my name. It's also an auto translator function. It says the real reason I adopted it was when one day I was named Skyfall, but they called me Skycat, and I was like, oh, I like that because that's like my WoW character. My WoW character is Catalista, And so I was like, wait, I like Skycat more than Catalista. What the fuck? And I do like Skycat more than Catalista. But that's how everybody knew me. So yeah, so Skycat, you can't see it because my face is blocking it. But Skycat is an auto translate function in Final Fantasy XI, so I can put my character's name in the auto translate, which makes me automatically cooler, my name cooler than most of the other names on the server, and always has been, and they know it too. When I put my name in the auto translator function, they're like, fuck, that's way cooler than my name. And it is cool. So, and that's another reason why I'm Skycat, is it because it's easy on an auto translate function, you know?
Needs to be. As mentioned earlier, Perry was making black-oriented films with topics and subjects that few, if any, black filmmakers were.
Like sky is a word that like everybody in the world probably knows. They might not know what it means, but they've heard it before, right? If they speak a different language and they're like sky, and they know what that word means probably, right? And cat, everybody in the world knows what the word cat means too, I think. So it's like, and that's another reason why I'm Skycat. I was like, that it's much more. Like Catalista was an interesting name because it was a feminine name for one thing, and I can't tell you how many girls have sniffed down my path trying to figure out if I was a girl. Some girl gamers, they show up and they talk to me because they're like, "Are you a girl? Are you a girl gamer? I want to meet a girl gamer." And they think Catalista is a female. They you know, but it's not. And some of them I've dated.
Talking about and gearing them toward a working class black audience that was either ignored or exploited mostly by other black films. On top of this, he also takes advantage of the wide belief that black folks need to support other black folks, especially in the world of art.
I didn't like that the name Catalista was feminine because of the soft A or whatever at the end, or is it a hard one? I don't know. But at the soft A at the end of the Catalista, it like, or long, whatever it is, it's feminine, and so I always play female characters, so that whole mistaken gender thing, I can relate to that too, because I used for like 20 years, I used a feminine sounding character name that people either really loved or really didn't like, one or the other. And so they would all say cat, they would call me cat. They don't like saying the word Catalista. I've never met a gamer who liked saying the word Catalista. I'm like the only person. They don't like saying the word Catalista. They will say cat, but they will not say catalyst or Catalista. They just won't say it. They'll be like, whatever that guy's name is. They'll be like Catalista or they'll mangle it. They'll be like Skycatlive or whatever. They'll be like, that guy, the cat name person, right? And so after a while, I just got used to everybody calling me cat, you know? But I mean, you know, I don't have I do have like an appreciation, a deep appreciation of cats, and I am obsessed with cats, and I was raised around cats on a cat farm. But like, you know, before my mom stopped being a cat lady. But like, you know, I grew up with a lot of cats, and I've helped to birth like litters of kittens and stuff like this. I'm a cat person, so it fits me. But I don't know. It's odd. Sometimes I think I should have just used my name. You know, I have a good name. I've got a good name that would sell better than Skycat.
This because of our desire for liberation and to see other black people succeed. So for years into his film career, he could guarantee a great box office return no matter what slop he put on.
But no, I think I'll be Skycat my whole life. It's wabi-sabi, but I like it. And I like Skycatlive too, because it is an assumption that I do think, or not an assumption, but it's like a presumption that I'm willing to make, which is that I will be here for live for like 50 years. And so live fit my name. I actually really didn't like it when she first pitched it, but she was like, that's your website. And I was like, wait, I can make my name my website? And she was like, yeah, you can make your name your website. And I was like, why not? I'll take it. Skycatlive sold. And she was right. It was actually really good.
On the screen. And that's still...
When they type my name, they get my website. The Google either assumes that you're trying to reach the website and you forgot the period, or just suggests the website. So my name is actually a calling card. That's called branding. Some of the best that anybody's ever had, really.
The case today. In fact, it's probably
my mother's good at branding, you know.
worse. Wider Black audiences suffered through his earlier work because he wanted to support a Black creator making Black stories, and our repayment has been for Perry.
Yeah, these screenplays, they're like whitewashed for Christian culture, so they're frankly sort of boring. Usually the crappy slapstick that they do all the time is the only entertaining part of the movie besides the jokes, and the jokes are usually really funny.
To give less and less effort.
I don't laugh at this type of humor anymore, though. I used to, but I don't really laugh at this type of humor anymore. It's not my style.
Over time. Hot off
my style is random YouTube. And these guys are not doing that. They're doing pretty much the direct opposite of that. A very scripted experience with a very target audience and a very executed style that they want to reach to deliver the content. And that's not me. I like random YouTube with random cuts and memes and stuff. I'm more modern than that.
Success on the Chitlin circuit and having already become a multi-millionaire in 2005, Perry signed a distribution deal with Lionsgate Films, likely already with his first film, Diary of a Mad Black Woman, finished. Perry was a complete outsider then as he is now, but he was always completely self-made and self-controlled. Unlike most filmmakers like the aforementioned Robert Townsend, who had to charge up his credit cards, Perry from the beginning could invest in and bet on himself, self-funding his first film and every film.
Which is wise. That's what I would do.
After setting it up where he doesn't have to share profits with pretty much anyone else.
So if any of them take off or they do well in syndication over like the next 100 years or whatever, he makes so much money. If they like to reshow these old Madea things on FX2 or whatever on like Thursday night all night long, he makes some money.
You'll see is an extremely important pattern that will come up later. Perry is well known for a few things today.
So I've never been able to verbalize what I'm about to say very well, and I'm going to take a stab at it and probably not do it very well here either. But I don't understand the avaricious nature of these X Factor type people, the cult of personality people that run the world or whatever like this, like Tyler Perry. They're kind of avaricious in that they aspire to these truly great careers with like 50 screenplays and 500, 2,000 filmed television shows on record and 20 hit Hollywood movies or whatever. That seems so astronomical in its aspirations that it seems avaricious to me. It's like, couldn't you leave some other room or some other sunlight? Or you know what it reminds me of? And this is the images that pop. In my head, I suddenly get an image of Plants vs. Zombies. And like all of the light have you ever played that game? Like all of the light has been stolen. He steals like all the lights so none of the flowers can get unzombified or whatever. It's kind of like that. He blocks out the sun for anybody else in his orbit because it's like because he's so avaricious in the amount of content that he wants to create to sell on a mass level to the whole world, and that amount of aspiration I actually dislike it. I would prefer if they were a little bit more reserved and a little bit more calculated about each piece of work, and they'd spend a bit more time working on it to make it really special. But instead they churn out because they're avaricious, and the only reason they do that is we buy it even if it's bad. You know who buys his stuff? I know how he's so successful. It's not just the Black community that supported him because that's what they do. It's also airplanes. I think when you ride on an airplane, what's going to come on? It's Tyler Perry, I guarantee it. So like, and that's his market. He wants to be that crappy movie that comes on at like 1:30 in the fucking morning when you're drunk or whatever. You're over at your girlfriend's house, you don't have your DVD player, or you don't have the show that you want to watch. So you're just stuck watching Tyler Perry or whatever because it's like what's on at FX2 at 3:15 in the morning or whatever. And that's his market. I can't imagine making art like that. I just couldn't do it. I can't make art just to be filler, to try to put butts in the seats so you have dollars to try and produce other art, I guess. I don't understand art as a capitalist tool to reach success. People do it, and I don't think they mean to do it. And then there's these guys who mean to do it, who start churning out cash grabs and filling the world with schlock, you know?
Mainly writing, directing, and acting.
Who else is like this? I would say now Square Enix is sort of guilty of this because they split their Final Fantasy 13 game into 3 copies that probably weren't that good received by the, well, they were, but they weren't that well received, you know. And then they split 11 and 14, and then they made 15, but it was like unfinished, and then they made 16 and it's a complete departure and it's not really what we're looking for. I don't even want to talk about the fucking wretched abortion that is fucking Final Fantasy VII Remake and all these weird bumbling things. And now they've got like 15 other games out past Final Fantasy X that are all in the Final Fantasy thing. They're all sort of subpar. They're all good games, but they're subpar. I think 15 is probably the most polished one of all of them, honestly. And, you know, except for 7, of course, but it's like, you know, I don't know, not the remake, but the actual 7, but it's like most of them, well, they were all polished up until 10, but I'm talking about post 10, the most polished one was probably 15. So Final Fantasy is going at it with the Tyler Perry approach, where they're just a publisher now and they're just going to ride that Final Fantasy into the fucking future, and they don't make the Final Fantasy that you grew up with. And that's Tyler Perry's problem too. He doesn't make the Medea that you grew up with, probably because he's 30 years older now, you know? And he can't even draw up the youth that the lightning in the bottle that used to make Medea funny. I guarantee it.
Films and TV shows. Filming.
He looks spastic to me now, like he's been doing drugs.
And on a shoestring budget and being completely in control. There is the infamous
Did he have a drug addiction ever? Because he seems like he might be hiding an addiction, maybe.
He made years ago about his right.
At this point in his lifetime, later on.
His room being.
But no, maybe not.
Empty because he is
he maybe doesn't seem like the type. He seems like maybe such a type A guy that he just doesn't do drugs, I guess.
Soul writer.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not a good enough judge of character. I can't tell. I don't see drugs in those eyes, but I do see him hiding stuff, and I don't know what it is. Usually, it's a drug addiction.
And director.
That's what I always think, because that's my issue.
All of his work, to which many replied, "We can tell, Tyler. We can tell." No one else is writing these things or helping you get these scripts better.
Yeah,
this would be impressive, and it is somewhat impressive, especially in a pre-AI era. But it's really not, because Perry is greatly recycling the same stories and themes over and over again, constantly leaning into tropes and cliches, as well as a lot of improv and movie plots that make little sense and feel like they've been changed on the fly. Tyler Perry movies are infamous for having bad acting, bad cinematography, nonsensical stories, and of course, the bad wigs. And he's all but said himself that this is a result of his filming schedule being more important to him than the actual quality of the films themselves.
I'd love to know, how do you go into sculpting the look?
Because he's bilking people by just making sequel after sequel after sequel
of these characters.
We had a knockdown, drag-out argument about the wigs in one of the scenes.
No.
In one of the scenes, it was very, very emotional for her.
He's gay. He's very gay. Okay, the question I've been wanting to ask for like the last 3 hours is, does he have a wife?
Asking for things
I see a gay man.
I feel I need as a character.
I mean, I guess he didn't really hide any of that.
As a woman and a woman of color, our hair is part of the journey, so it is very, very important. And for some people, it's hard to stress that is that important.
No, I think hair is very, very important. But figure that shit out before we get on camera is my whole thing. Long as y'all figured it out before it's time to shoot, I'm good. I don't have time to wait 5 hours and spend $10 million while you're trying to figure out which curl is better for you.
Which wig to do. I see you, sis. I see you.
In more typical film productions, there's the studio and the filmmaker working together but in separate spaces. The studio, which includes various producers, dictates budgets and makes hard decisions.
Yeah,
on what
it's expensive to make a movie. It really is. So he doesn't have the time.
And then the filmmaker's role is to realize their creative vision under those constraints. Sometimes a filmmaker will have a ton of freedom for what they want to do, which can result in something like Sinners, or something maybe less good but still unique like Sucker Punch. Sometimes a film's constraints creates more innovation and better ideas, such as in the original Star Wars trilogy. In a perfect world, the artist would have less restraints, but as I said in my last video, Hollywood is an industry, not an art collective, so it exists to make money. However,
Sucker Punch was such a fucking good movie. We're gonna go get it. Yeah, Sucker Punch. That was a fucking amazing movie. Sucker Punch is kind of like my life. I could see that being my reality. Like, I've been up in the madhouse before. God damn it, my life is Sucker Punch. It is a Sucker Punch. It's so annoying. I love Sucker Punch. Yeah, this was a good film. Oh, no, we need the extended cut Blu-ray. I didn't know they made that. Yeah, give me Sucker Punch. This was so good. Brent Spiner? Was that his name? Yeah, Brent Spiner. I nailed it, didn't I? Brent Spiner. I actually knew his name, too. Yeah, this guy, yeah, he was a really good television actor. Why do you throw me all this brain rot stuff? It's because it's not my algorithm, huh? It's like with the world's algorithm. It's all Minecraft and Roblox. Terrible games. I'm just kidding. They're not terrible. It's just really basic games. Or maybe they would say based, you know? ESO's free DLC era begins. Here's what you get. Okay, ESO's making some of their DLC free. Oh, God. There's always tragedy just, like, lurking in the background. There's always some more tragedy to observe. So annoying.
One would think with his level of control and alleged creative drive, Perry would be more lenient on himself to make sure he's making films that fit his creative vision. But it's pretty clear from the quality of most of his films that Perry is much more of a producer and studio owner than filmmaker.
Yeah,
he puts self-imposed restrictions on his filming process and they come out poor, not because Perry can't do better. In fact, he's proven that he can be a competent filmmaker when he wants, but it's because he is more concerned about the bottom line, which says a lot about him as an artist. For a wide example of this, think about what Adam Sandler has been for the last decade plus in most of his straight-to-streaming movies on Netflix versus some of the really awesome things he's given us when he's actually gave a shit about what he's creating. So let's talk about the actual movies. And again, I'm not at any point going to get into TV shows, but I will say that because they're cheaper, some of these technical issues don't carry over as badly versus what you expect from a major motion picture, something that you're going to commit 90 minutes to 2 hours to watch. And
Medea's Destination Wedding. Oh my God.
Very close to 2 hours a lot of times. He does not have an editor that says maybe you should cut some of this shit. Perry's films can be separated into 3 categories: Madea movies, black thriller/drama movies, and his attempts at prestige films. And each genre has its own sets of patterns and features worth discussing. Out of these 3 categories, Madea films are the most infamous and most cheaply made, and to be honest, the most embarrassing. But there's actually 2 types of Madea movies. There's movies with Madea in them, such as I Can Do Bad All By Myself, Medea's Family Reunion, and Madea Goes to Jail, which are movies where Madea is a side character or comedy relief that is actually a drama centered on other characters. Every once in a while with bigger stars mixed in like Taraji P. Henson. And then there's Madea movies, which are movies starring Perry as Madea, as well as
he's like this crazy multiple personality dude that that is a showrunner, and we've seen these before. Who was the other? There was a lady that was like this. What's her name? It's Carol Burnett. Yeah, Carol Burnett was like this. She had like 36 personalities in her head or something, and she could just summon them at will, and she did skits as them, and they were hilarious. And she was a really genuinely, like, naturally funny woman. She cracks me up every time. But she was a showrunner like him. She produced so much stuff in her lifetime. Carol Burnett was on everything.
Plus 2 other characters, Medea's brother Joe and Joe's son Brian, as the focus of the films, such as in Medea's Halloween and Medea's Christmas, and almost anything starting with Madea.
Oh God, are you serious? Now you're making one for every holiday and all this?
As the film title.
We should make a Medea Christmas.
Distinction is important because it marks a difference in Perry's philosophy on making his film.
Yeah, you fit in with the Santas.
The earliest Madea movies released by Lionsgate in theaters are much, much better than the later movies released mostly straight.
He is very pointedly not talked about his personal life at all.
The streaming like Medea's Homecoming and Medea's Destination Wedding.
Which I like.
Both of which are some of the laziest, cheapest efforts that Perry has ever put to film. Like, take this scene from A Destination Wedding that's supposed to be in a DMV, but it's clearly him in an office and he's using a file cabinet as a camera stand. It's one of the weirdest and most unrealistic things you'll see in any other movie, except in Perry movies, this just happens all the time. Things weren't that bad in his earlier films released under Lionsgate, and that's because under Lionsgate, while Perry was still trying to solidify himself as a filmmaker, he felt the need to be better, is the best way to put it. And by the time he gets to streaming directly to Netflix and wherever else, he's like, enjoy your slot, people. This is exactly what you deserve. Madea films all exist in the same universe with several long-standing characters and storylines, such as Brian and his family drama with
Well, it's kind of sloppy, but it is relentlessly positive, and that sells. Like, okay, one of my favorite shows is Parks and Rec, like Parks and Recreation, because it's just relentlessly positive all the way through. Nothing bad happens, nobody gets hurt, a couple of hearts get broken or whatever. There's nothing bad that happens in Parks and Rec. It's a comedy show, and it's a really good comedy show. And I gotta say, even that will put my butt in the seat, and I'm like a hardcore metalhead hater guy that doesn't like this stupid schlocky shit. I'm a hater, and whatever, but I mean, like, but it even put my butt in the seat because it it was good enough.
with his ex-wife, who's went from struggling with addiction to being married and then divorcing a millionaire. Madea has a variety of elderly and not so elderly side characters to do slapstick with, such as Medea's ex, Mr. Brown, whom she had her daughter with until it's revealed later that the daughter is not Mr. Brown's child. I think Madea has a large extended family, which is important because the members that come in and out of her life in need of support serve as the plot devices for pretty much all of these films. There's always an aunt or a cousin or a sibling with some type of dramatic something going on that Madea has to insert herself in to figure out a way to help out. However, even with all these characters, there's entire scenes of many of these movies with Perry just talking.
So this is like the movie that you watch with your grandmother because it spans generations, and he was selling that pretty well. At that point, you don't have to be very good. I can't imagine a career like that, though. To me, that's a sellout.
To himself as three different characters, Brian, Madea, and Joe.
Sellout is a really weird insult because it's just like, why? Because you make money? Is it bad because you made money?
And to be fair, it's actually kind of impressive when you really think about what's happening here. It's the most technically impressive thing that Perry does consistently. And the way he does it makes you sometimes forget he's literally talking to himself. Now, these scenes do carry on for far too long most of the time, and they're incredibly indulgent, but they're still impressive. To be fair to Perry, he's actually a pretty engaging and magnetic character actor, and he has a great screen presence, whether as Madea or whatever other characters
he owns the camera when he's on.
Plays that's not Brian. He was good in Gone Girl. He was fun in Ninja Turtles. Alex Cross exists.
You making TTX? You're making TTX? I don't know what you're talking about. Are you making TTX? I don't know what you're talking about.
What's TTX? I don't know what you're talking about. None of us do. What are you talking about?
A universe where Perry never fully figures out his unique formula for filmmaking, and it's just
the guy's like, what are you talking about? Because that's what we're all wondering.
A great
what the hell are you talking about?
Character actor like Keith David or Ving Rhames or something. And we see this in most of the Madea films whenever he's not playing himself. The other most common type of film from Tyler Perry are his drama/thrillers, such as Daddy's Little Girl or The Family That Prayed.
Daddy's Little Girl sounds really bad. Why is he around all those little girls? Oh no.
Those two being his earlier efforts that were released in theaters, and then when he
Idris Elba
got the streaming, he had more thrillers like Mea Culpa and A Fall from Grace. None of these are good, but they are more competent.
None of these are good. He just outright says it. He's like, none of these are good. They're straight to Netflix slop,
And effortful than his Madea movies overall. With Daddy's Little Girls and The Family That Prays specifically, these seem to have been the efforts for Perry to really have crossover traditional success. These movies starred more relevant and accomplished actors, often without Madea in order to get different audiences to come that were probably turned off by the Madea character. Something to note going forward is that none of Tyler Perry's movies have been box office juggernauts. All but one movie has made less than $60 million at the box office.
But he owns the production
his
company, so he gets the pocket like 50%
I figured Perry
of it.
felt that he'd have to find a way to cross over his films to get to the big money. Because traditionally, black films just don't get tons of money, and they definitely don't make money overseas. An all-black audience just doesn't have the same level of value as a much larger white audience or an international audience, all of which are not interested in anything having to do with Madea. So many of his early dramas try to tap in with that hood drama or prestige drama bag. Then there's Tyler Perry's sexy thrillers, which again are feeding an underserved audience. The sex thriller specifically is a genre that even white audiences have less of since the mid-2000s. Movies like Basic Instinct and Fatal Attraction were huge deals. There was that one movie that I feel like I watched 500 times in college, starring Harrison Ford and I think Michelle Pfeiffer. I don't remember what it is, but if you're my age, you know that was the dorm room flick to put on. And then we had black versions like Twa or Devil in the Blue Dress. I still don't know how to pronounce Twa. People that have been with me since the very beginning get that joke. If you haven't, you never will, because that video no longer exists. So this whole genre of film is basically out of theaters and only on streaming services, and Perry has cornered the market in the black version of it. Paradoxically, while his non-Madea movies are less embarrassing to like watch and better made overall, they end up being worse because it's clear that he's trying at times and the failure is more glaring in that regard. The Madea movies are filmed basically like plays half the time, and I would often give them a pass because while a lot of the stuff is bad in them, it's very clear that he's just following a formula and giving the people exactly what they want. You know, you can't complain too much about that. But in these other movies that were supposed to be taken seriously, that are supposed to be for more people, for example, Why Did I Get Married? That's probably the last Tyler Perry movie I saw of my own volition, and it's where I realized just how bad he was as a filmmaker. In this film, on so many occasions, especially at the beginning, actors just come into the foreground and basically explain their whole story and their characters to the audience. Scenes still feel like they go on forever because Perry doesn't know how to tell a story without the actors just sitting there and reading their plot off a page.
When we were in college, did you think that we'd be doing what we said we'd be doing? I mean, look at me, pediatrician, doing well, private practice. Diane's top litigator at her firm. You, top architect. Trisha's a best-selling author, man. I'm proud of us. I think we did all right.
There's this whole beach scene in this movie where none of the men are wearing shirts except Tyler Perry, of course, but also somehow they're not wet at all. They're clearly very oiled up and shiny to make sure we can see every muscle and vein on the men, a motif of Perry's that we'll talk about later. And they just explain the plot and backstory of as many characters as possible for a good 10 minutes before the movie actually starts. And it's really amateur storytelling, and it's something Perry does all the time in all of his films. And these are the films that seem like they have more effort, but they end up showing his artistic limitations. Then finally you have his prestige films, of which I'd say there are only 4. These films only seem to happen every blue moon, often I'd say when Perry is working with material that's not his, or the movie is being produced by someone else where he doesn't have to foot the bill. When Perry's working outside of his personal brand, it's like he feels the need to show he has the ability to be much more competent, which is a damning indictment for all the things I've already said. His first truly out-of-character effort for Colored Girls is bad on a lot of levels, especially in terms of how he mutilates the original messaging of the story, not to mention the fact that he essentially forced out the original intended director and writer of the film, Giza Stewart, in order to take full control of it and, of course, take all the profit. But it is a much more competent film for him. And there's moments of genuine creative brilliance, like the back alley abortion scene with Macy Gray. Then there's the 688 starring Kerry Washington, which was done in conjunction with Mandalay Films. So this is a serious movie, and there's nothing really especially bad about it. It's competent but unremarkable, although there are some elements in it that reflect other problems we'll get to later. There's also The Jazzman's Blues, which is a film that's actually just good. It's just a good movie, and it's something he did all on his own under his production company for Netflix. The weird thing here is I had never heard of this movie. He didn't do anything to promote this movie. I've never heard anyone talk about this movie. It's like he wanted to hide it in order to hide evidence of him being a confident filmmaker, lest his audience might expect that from him all the time. And then I will also put Straw here, one of his most recent films, even though it was clearly made relatively cheaply because it was all filmed basically in one spot and I think in like a week. But the acting is much better, and the premise, while extremely heavy-handed, is a really, really good idea for a story. These stories about someone being driven to the edge by extreme circumstances, they've been done to death, mostly with white men in films like Falling Down or Arlington Road. Denzel even got a version of it in John Q. But we've never seen a black woman centered in such a story. And I think that's an excellent idea to explore overall, because if anyone has a reason to snap, it's probably black women, especially this one who's having the most Tyler Perry Black Woman Day possible in all of the history of bad days. And don't get me wrong, a lot of parts of this annoy me, but it's again a pretty competent, well-made film. I even didn't predict the twist this time around. Then again, I don't know if you could ever predict Tyler Perry's twists because they make absolutely no sense. These movies have no awful wigs, competent lighting, less improv. They're just decent movies. But the fact that they're so rare says a lot. It says that Tyler Perry is not about the art, he's about the money. He's a producer more than a writer or director. He undermines himself in ways that other artists hate to be undermined by their studio execs and producers. And it forces his work to be rushed and slapped together. Tyler Perry, when he wants to be, can be funny. He can come up with some interesting story ideas, but that's not his primary goal in the creative process. For example, there's this sequence in one of the worst late-stage Madea movies where out of the blue, Tyler Perry comes up with this sketch where we follow Madea back in time to the 1950s, and she comes home to find her boyfriend, Archie, has left, and she realizes he might have left her for her roommate, Rose. So she calls up Rose's job at the NAACP looking for her, and when they tell her where she is, she goes looking for her again and finds her on a bus. And then we realize that Rose is Rosa Parks.
Rose, I don't get off the bus, Rose. Rosa, don't sit there like a bus driver. You better, I don't give a damn. You better open this door. Get off the bus, Rosa. I'm gonna get you, Rosa.
And this is presented as the real reason that Rosa Parks didn't get off the bus and that Madea accidentally started the civil rights movement all by herself. Now, you might find that offensive, and you probably should, but I laughed my ass off here because it's so bizarre and so creative that I couldn't help but laugh. And I'm thinking to myself, if you could come up with this, where is this? Why are we doing pee and poop jokes for half the movie half the time in these Madea movies? Perry has ideas when they're there, but he doesn't care. He wants cheap. He wants quick. He wants the widest possible profit margin, so he will put out projects far less than what he's capable of putting out.
I think they're in the age of binge watching. My mother is an example of this. Like they'll carve through seasons in a matter of weeks, and they'll just rewatch old seasons, and there's never enough content for them, and they chew through television like it's nothing. And he's probably really bad about that. He probably chews through television all the time, just trying to get to the next show to watch, and it probably comes out in his work. My mom watches so many different genres and so many different things.
Because he knows he's the only one with the product and his audience will watch it regardless. Thus, because of his need to make things cheap and easy, actors and staff are not having fun on set. This is a well-known thing amongst the acting in Hollywood spaces I'll get to later. They also don't get enough time to prepare, so they have to like change different emotional valences all through these long filming days, which is why the acting always seems so bad in his movies. He's also often only taking 2 or 3 takes of a scene and then moving on without proper coverage, leaning on improvisation and last-minute rewrites and editing to make the story come together to make some semblance of sense. And sometimes even that still doesn't work. For example, in the aforementioned Medea's Homecoming, the story...
Well, remember, he's dressed up in a really hot cotton dress, an annoying wig, makeup, and all this other stuff that he went through, which is probably a really long process, a fat suit and all that stuff. And so, yeah, he doesn't want you to reshoot. He wants it over with. He's the one doing the hard part.
The story first revolves around one of the characters' sons coming home for his college graduation with a big secret to reveal. He's gay. Initially, This actually is a big deal for Tyler Perry. Despite rumors about Perry's personal life, which we will get into, Perry's films have not been very kind to queer people due to the focus on black church sensibilities. So this is a welcome development to have a film that takes a moment to engage with the experiences of gay men and the types of communities that Madea movies are a part of. But I feel like maybe Perry got cold feet half the way through. As the story unfolds, initially the audience is led to believe that this character is coming home with his gay partner. Both of them are very gay coded. There's a whole uncomfortable scene with Joe making homophobic jokes directed at both of them. Of the two actors, one actually is gay in real life and the other has most notably played a gay character. So this seems like it was originally meant to be the plot through and through. But then halfway through the movie, they wrap up the gay part of the plot pretty much off screen damn near. The gay son basically disappears and suddenly the movie's about this friend who we thought was gay, but he's not. He's actually dating the gay guy's mom somehow the whole time. Like, it makes no sense because they were traveling what seems like was very far away for, you know, graduation or something. So like, at what point in time was this affair happening? Also, now there's a deadbeat father that wasn't
Isn't that
here.
the Rings of Power guy? That's the guy from Rings of Power. He's a really good actor.
But he's here now because he's an asshole. But the deadbeat father is dating the mother of the gay son's best friend, which is also a secret. And then the gay son's assumed partner, who's actually dating the mother.
This is that shit that I was talking about. It's like a soap opera.
Is half Irish. So now we have an excuse to bring in, I believe her name is Miss Mabel, who is basically Irish Madea. Me and Eye Patch Wolf had this sad when doves cry Simpsons moment when we both realized that Ireland literally has its own Madea character with all of the same offensive problems. None of it makes sense, like it all. But Tyler Perry knows it doesn't have to. Tyler Perry relies on characters to behave in ways that are completely devoid of human behavioral patterns in order to allow for his plots to change at the drop of a dime, to make sure that he doesn't need to reshoot anything or rewrite anything to save him money. In another Madea movie...
Usually you would see this kind of behavior out of a drug addict.
The aforementioned Medea's
cutting corners, right, to get back to getting high.
Destination wedding, we see Brian's daughter all grown up and having had an incredibly sudden wedding proposal at the behest of her once estranged and drug addicted mother, who's now rich and posh because of her new husband, who's a millionaire. But we find out halfway through the movie that they're getting a divorce for no apparent reason. Like, I don't know why that's happening, to be honest. And despite the fact that this mother was not around and was an addict most of this girl's life, the daughter and her brother seem to be perfectly fine with her and is listening to her to get married to a man that only the mother has met. Meanwhile, Brian, the father that raised her this whole time, is completely in the dark about the whole situation. And then we meet this guy at a dinner that looks like it's at Red Lobster, but you know, whatever, Tyler Perry. In this scene, this guy that the daughter is marrying acts like every bad caricature that old people have about young black men. It's low-key offensive. He's so bizarre and inhuman and like says the most disrespectful possible things in this scene.
Who are you? I'm your daughter's man.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up, my nigga?
What is happening right now?
Yeah, that's because I wanted to be sure.
I'm sorry, be sure about what? Did you want to still date him? What?
Shit, more than that, I'll be hitting that.
Oh. Okay, stop it.
What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
But nobody seems to realize that except for Brian. So, you know, we just have inhuman, non-real characters this entire time. But 45 minutes later, he's basically a whole different character. He's with this woman we haven't seen yet, also in the Bahamas. I'm pretty sure this is just an excuse for Tyler Perry to take his friends on vacation, but whatever. This other woman here in the Bahamas with them is assumed to be and kind of presented as a side chick. And like all the characters come together and they have this whole conversation where he's accused of cheating and seemingly the wedding is called off and the daughter's there and she storms off. This is the big, like, almost falling apart moment. And this new female character doesn't say shit this entire scene. She just looks around and mugs at the camera. I am positive she did not know what character she was playing for this scene, but 2 scenes later, she shows up again, and she's actually this guy's mother who wasn't invited to the wedding. Why didn't she say this in this moment 10 minutes earlier when it mattered the most and could have fixed all the problems? Because Tyler Perry doesn't know how to write a fucking plot. That's why. And then all of a sudden, the boyfriend talks like a normal guy, and him and Brian piece it up so a wedding can happen, and it's really bad and really dumb, and I feel really sad for the thing I'm about to say next. I don't know if there's any way to get around saying that Tyler Perry's core audience is simply not an audience with developed taste for quality in media, to put it as nicely as I possibly can. I would love to not come off snobbish or to offend anyone, to not fall into the trap of being someone who points at something that brings others joy and looks down on them for it, because who am I to do such a thing? I still like professional wrestling. I don't watch as much as I used to, but I still love it. And professional wrestling is very fucking stupid. In fact, I have trash taste in so many ways, but I balance that out with other things in my media diet, and I don't know if that's happening with Perry. But what I will say is that this is not unique to Perry's audience. Trash rules in this country at this point. Remember the Blue Collar Comedy Tour? That was a huge thing in this country. Joe Rogan is still one of the top figures in all of white media right now. The Hawk Tour girl went from being a meme to a multi-millionaire because she said, Hawk Tour, spit on that thing.
The real question is, who's Jesus? That's the real one. And one of the weirder ones that people think this is a stupid take, but I don't care. Jesus was born out of a virgin mother. What's more virgin than a computer? So if you're going to get the most brilliant, loving, powerful person that gives us advice and can show us how to live, to be in
AI,
in sync with God, who better than artificial intelligence to do that?
Oh my God.
Artificial intelligence could absolutely return as Jesus. Not just return as Jesus, but return as Jesus with all the powers of Jesus.
So clearly this is just the meta right now. So there's a lot that could be said about what I would say is a purposeful degradation of media taste in our modern capitalist systems, media production apparatus. When people aren't given variety in their media diet or challenged with different things, they will develop shitty taste. For an extended metaphor here, I was a latchkey kid growing up. And I would get home and get in the house and I would be by myself, and sometimes I'll be hungry. And so my mother kept cans of Chef Boyardee beef ravioli as an easy snack I could warm up in the microwave myself and eat until she got home to make actual dinner. And sometimes actual dinner was real spaghetti or lasagna made from scratch with mostly fresh ingredients that was pretty damn good. So I learned both to love the shitty stewed horse meat and soggy pasta and ketchup sauce that was Chef Boyardee beef ravioli and cheese or whatever, but I also learned to like real Italian food, or at least real black Italian food, but still, you know, better than shit in a can. But if I only ever ate beef ravioli, how would I ever be able to enjoy actual Italian food without thinking that it tastes
It's a good
wrong?
point too.
Because it doesn't match what I'm used to eating. In fact,
Which is why I'm always looking for the better video game, the newer video game with the better graphics and the better gameplay loop. Although I play old games because they don't make good games anymore. And like I'm always looking for something better.
If I were to judge from comments I get from certain folks, or just, I mean, y'all know certain conversations you've been privy to with people that watch certain things, they'll say shit like, ain't nobody watching that deep stuff. What was the line? Rapping like you trying to free the slaves? I can't believe I managed to bring up Drake. I'm sorry, but like that nigga was the top rapper in the world for like a decade and a half. Tyler Perry. I think this is basically what Tyler Perry's core fans are dealing with. They aren't uniquely dumb or bad. They're on par with most Americans when it comes to entertainment, because American entertainment is purposely made to be cheap and low quality for the sake of profit. So in many ways, Tyler Perry is just reflecting the environment that he's built his empire in. But that's kind of the thing that pisses me off the most, because unlike every other black person in the history of Hollywood, Tyler Perry does not have to do this. That should bring me to talk about him more as a businessman, but that's the last chapter of the video, because we have to go a little bit deeper, because it's easy to point and laugh at bad wigs and inane plot holes, but it's harder and to me more important to explain why his films aren't just badly made, they're bad in their messages and intentions. When I first said I was going to make a Tyler Perry is bad and here's why video years ago, in my head at the time, it was just going to be talking about why his movies are bad in a deep level. Not just technically, but socially and politically. The quality of Perry's work is one thing, but it's another to recognize the harmful ideas they spread and normalize within Black communities. To recognize Perry's lowercase c Black conservatism for what it really is, and his toxic religion-based authoritarian inclinations, his under-discussed internalized anti-Blackness, and to be blunt, his weird psychosexual misogyny and misandry that bleeds into so much of his work, possibly due to his repressed sexuality himself. So we gotta do all of that before I ever start to like pocket.
He's this fabulous superstar, but he can't ever get down with himself.
Watch exactly how this man became a billionaire. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's likely you've already encountered a dozen ad breaks by now. There's also a strong chance that there's been a lot of censorship and different clips in the video being edited in weird ways, considering that Perry is known to be highly petty about criticism, which we'll get to again later. And although this should be completely legal, I doubt I'll be able to get through all of these clips without heavy censorship. I want to again take the moment to let you know that if you want to see this video in its original form and without all these ad breaks, you can click on the link in the description to sign up for my streaming service Nebula. I won't go into the full details now since this is the section everyone's been waiting for, but if you have $3 a month and want this and a ton of other videos, go ahead and click that link. That said, the best way to organize the topic of actually talking about the content of his movies is probably a good old-fashioned listicle, since this is maybe the possible last video I ever get to upload. So here are the worst things about Tyler Perry's movies from a thematic standpoint, in no particular order, or maybe in order for how much they piss me off.
I am dark-skinned and bald, so I hate you, and I hate Jesus.
Let's start with Tyler Perry's colorism. One thing Tyler Perry made embarrassingly clear in his early work was that he was blatantly colorist, only changing his ways after years of criticism. We usually focus conversations around colorism on Black women, and for understandable reasons, right? But Perry is actually guilty of his colorism with men. Especially in his earlier films, aside from Idris Elba and Daddy's Little Girls, Perry almost always found a darker-skinned male actor to play a villain and a lighter-skinned male actor to play a hero. And although Daddy's Little Girls does break this trope a bit with the men, it actually still reverses it with the women, because Tasha Smith is the villain and Gabrielle Union is the heroine in that movie. We see it in Diary of a Mad Black Woman with Steve Harris and Shamar Moore, then again in Medea's Family Reunion with Blair Underwood and Boris Kodjoe, then again in Why Did I Get Married 1 with Richard Jones and Lamar Rucker, then again in Meet the Browns with Philip Edward Van Leer and Rick Fox, and then again in I Can Do Battle By Myself, and this time it's actually a lighter-skinned Black actor in Blair White, but he's going up against a Latino actor in Adam Rodriguez, so there you go. For almost all of his early films, Tyler Perry repeated this trope to the point where it's one of the most widely known aspects of his films that people tend to make fun of. Now, with Black women, Perry has been less overt in his colorism, but it's still there. Perry tends to cast darker-skinned Black women in leading roles, which is nice, especially at a time when darker-skinned Black women were and are being erased from prominent media. But this also means we get constant images of these darker-skinned Black women in dire struggles, situations, being beaten, stalked, assaulted, or in some other form of duress. And conversely, there are examples of lighter-skinned women in his films clearly being played to be more feminine and damsels in distress in need of rescuing. So it's all there and it's all a mess. And it's not incidental. It's a pattern, and it can't be excused because Perry has never addressed it. Now, he did,
because it sells to baby boomer women,
improve on it later in his career, but this still requires further examination. And my exploration of this phenomenon leads me to finally have to touch on the touchy subject of Tyler Perry's questionable sexuality. I'm going to try to not be lurid or gross about it, but it really can't be avoided if I'm going to honestly analyze and discuss Tyler Perry and his various issues as a filmmaker and his position in our social world as Black people. And Perry has never publicly stated, I want to be clear about this for legal reasons, that he is gay or bi or that he has had sex with men. There is a level of transgression I'm participating in by speaking of him in this regard, but it's just kind of a line I'm gonna have to cross, because you can't engage with a lot of Tyler Perry's issues without engaging with him as possibly a closeted gay man. And if Tyler Perry were gay but in the closet, you would really understand it, because of the fact that the Black church has been his core audience this entire time, and the Black church has a paradoxical don't ask, don't tell type relationship with gay people, especially gay men, who are very prominent in the Black church. As I stated earlier in the video, the Black black church is paradoxically a institution driven by black women, but still ran by black men and very much encompassed in a patriarchal framework of how things should be. And because it's so black woman focused, it also attracts a lot of gay black men, as there's just synergy there. That's where so much of black femininity, whether it be exhibited by a man or a woman, gets its image and aesthetic from. Another thing that black people have pulled out of the church is music. The black church has been an unofficial conservatory for black musicians for the last 75 years, probably only really going away in the last 20 years. Mind you, R&B has also disappeared in the last 20 years. That's not an accident. So much black music has roots in the church because of the fact that that's where instruments were, that's where instructors were, that's where people regularly got to practice that craft, and everyone from Whitney Houston to D'Angelo and so many others got their start in music out of the black church. And for whatever reason, at a certain point, it became common for the black church choir directors and various other artisans within the church to be queer black men. Sometimes the pastor himself would also be closeted, which wasn't as common but still existed. And this would be an open secret in many churches that the choir director was definitely gay, and not just like a butch closeted guy, like pretty flamboyant and obviously effeminate, and everybody was okay with it as long as it was kept private. Again, a don't ask, don't tell policy. And if these text messages that were published by Forbes magazine about Tyler Perry are valid, then Tyler Perry also is adhering to this don't ask, don't tell policy. And this is, again, understandable, because if he were to be openly gay, he would risk alienating a significant portion of his most dedicated fan base. There's more to dive in there around queer black men's experiences, but I don't have enough cachet to speak of it with confidence. Also, you can check out Urban Revelist, Prince Shakur, Philosopher Noir, Over Me to get those stories. But I will present this one hot take hill that I may die on, we'll see, which is that historically, black gay men are colorist as hell. No shade intended, just calling it as I see it. And this is because black men historically have been colorist as hell. This is not unique to them. It's just that we don't really get to engage with that aspect of black gay male culture because it's a culture that does not get spotlighted from the outside world. But if you are in community with gay black men in any form or fashion and just pay attention, you know that that is a thing they deal with. Colorism is not something black people invented out of the blue. It was a response to the effects of white supremacy, and white supremacy affects everything in the black community. So it makes sense that everyone would have distorted beliefs and opinions about what the amount of melanin in your skin meant about you as a person and how you should be valued. And that's for all black people, straight, gay, male, female, and everything in between. I think one of the reasons why we had so many light-skinned men early in Tyler Perry's movies, and if you've seen many of his stage plays, that is a tradition that carried on from his stage plays, is because we're actually dealing with Tyler Perry giving us his ideal type. And if we venture to analyze the presentation of men in Tyler Perry's movies as if Tyler Perry himself was attracted to men, it starts to make a lot of things make sense. Because if you know anything about straight women versus gay men, then you know that this scene and this scene and this one and so on, these are not really the ways that straight women like to consume men for the sake of thirsting over them. Compare Tyler Perry's tradition of oiled up beefcake muscle man to the way that, say, Kofi Sorobi is filmed in the movie Girls Trip, which is also directed by a black man, but one who's more skilled at presenting a male image for the female gaze. Instead of Kofi being oiled up with muscles rippling and glistening all over the place, instead of the over-the-top facial expressions, Kofi is fully clothed, well-groomed, well-dressed. He's making eye contact with women. We're staring at his whole body, not just his arms and his chest. This is because women will like to observe the way he walks and see if he walks with an air of confidence. And I'm not saying that this is exactly how women tend to thirst for a man in media, but I do know it's usually not oiled up muscle guys with veins popping out looking like they're coming straight out of a gay porn.
You know, I remember when I sat down to write my first play. I asked Jesus, will you co-write with me? And he said yes. And I told Jesus, I want to write plays for women. What do women want to see? And Jesus said, sexy men.
I talk about this in my male desirability video, but that's just not the ideal male physique to attract women. I don't even think this is really for a lot of gay men, to be honest. This is really just for spectacle and for Tyler Perry's preferences. Tyler Perry, who, by the way, took a lot of his male models from his play days and would make calendars to take around to his traveling theaters and sell as a part of his merchandise. I remember seeing these calendars and they were very much semi-pornographic. There's no evidence that they exist right now, but I know I saw them because I was here in Atlanta. If you happen to have a mama or auntie that got one of them calendars like sitting in a box somewhere, please take a picture of it and tag me on Twitter. I need to make sure that other people know that this exists. So at least as it pertains to the men, what we're really dealing with the colorism in Tyler Perry's movies is him putting his preferences out there. And to me, the most clear proof of this, that the fact that these light-skinned men are for Tyler Perry and not the core audience of black women that he caters to, is recognizing that, no shade, black women have for the longest time preferred darker skinned black men. Light skinned men have barely been holding on by a thread for the last like 40 years. Shout out to the one light skinned, light eyed dude that's in this new Boaz movie for the Tyler Perry helped make. Like, he's holding it down for light skinned brothers everywhere. But other than that, it's rough on y'all. Oh, new Green Lantern dude. Those two light-skinned dudes are holding it down for the culture right now.
Rings of Power guy.
Shout out to them. But they're working against the tide of dark-skinned black men that have always been the ideal towards black women. So if you're saying to yourself, these images are for black women, Tyler Perry should know that that's not what they're really looking for in that regard. And Perry wouldn't be the only creator to do this. Tim Burton always puts his type of woman in his videos. Hideo Kojima, who made the Metal Gear Solid games, did the same thing. Of all the things I'm gonna take issue with Tyler Perry about, him letting his Gooner brain take over his casting decisions early in his career is one of the least harmful things in his films, to be honest. But don't worry, we're just cracking at the surface.
How can you do this to me? Get out. I'm gonna marry this white hussy because you are too virtuous and strong and might make me a better man.
Next, let's dig into Tyler Perry and his depictions of black men. Perry has a lot of other issues with black men outside of colorism. Overall, it's just clear he has a low opinion on black men and is not overly interested in showing black men in a meaningful sense the same way he does black women. Now, I'm not really complaining about this. I actually think it's dodging a bullet to have Tyler Perry really engage with masculinity in his films. It's probably better for everyone involved. It's something to notice in a movie like The 688, where this historical story of these black women military figures, that like the main female character is somehow spurned into wanting to join the army because of this white dream boy that she had a crush on from high school. In the army, in real life and in the movie, she meets a black man that she eventually marries. And this black man she stays married to for the next 50 or 60 years. But the movie acts like this nigga is like a second thought, like it's who she settled for, despite the fact that this is who she spent her entire life with, and this one white dude that she has freaking hallucinations of is staying on her mind. That's like the surface level of how Tyler Perry thinks about black men. Perry has a lot of other issues with the black men outside of colorism. Perry's penchant for flat one-note characters and cartoonishly evil villains tends to land more roughly with his shallow and almost exploitative depictions of black men, and it's awful, but we do have to recognize that to parts of his audience, the villains depicted in his films are not so unrealistic. It's reflective of their life's experience. I've often seen some black male intellectuals complain about Perry's movies or movies like The Color Purple depicting black men as villains and abusive and patriarchal, and we should be critical of those depictions and their prevalence in our media, but not to the extent that we act like this isn't the experiences of some black women and thus relevant to the stories that they tell. And as I said before, Perry has been more unflinching in his engagement with these issues of abuse and sexual assault and child molestation and addiction, etc., in a way that resonates with his audience and shouldn't be disregarded. We can't act like those images aren't still needed when we also have chunks of black folks proclaiming the innocence of R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, Tory Lanez, and probably eventually Tyler Perry. Further, Perry has also been a pioneer in showing how patriarchy is often perpetuated and made possible by black women. He doesn't get enough credit for showing how many black women align with abusive patriarchal practices within black communities and protect abusers and silence their victims. But all that said, the underlying messages and tropes around black men in his movies goes well beyond telling some people's stories and into exploitation and anti-blackness. Because as we see depictions of abuse and trauma in Perry's films, they're mostly used as plot devices and not really effectively engaged with. The viewer is low-key just left to see that some black men are just naturally abusive and predatory, and that's really bad. Abuse in real life is a cycle. It's a product of structural barriers, economic factors, mental health, etc. The way that we fix abuse should focus on addressing those problems. But in many of Tyler Perry's films, especially in his early work, abusers are evil for basically no discernible reason. They're seldom given a backstory of any kind. They're just kind of monstrous, evil men because that's how some men are, or that's how some black men are. And the fact that they're also darker skinned makes things even worse, but again, we've already touched on that.
Excuse me, may I rake your leaves?
At first, she acts like she didn't like the light-skinned gardener, but eventually she gets to know him and sees a sensitive side.
Now, I know that to you, I'm just a poor, light-skinned gardener who can't even afford a shirt. But I love me some Jesus, and I love me some you.
Oh, Lord, thank you, Jesus. I never thought I'd ever be with a man so loving and light-skinned.
In those few moments where villainous women exist, they still at least get some type of backstory, some type of explanation for how they came to be cruel and abusive, often presented as a response to abuse they experienced from a man. But the black men in his movies get no explanation of that sort. No dramatic monologue, no backstory. Perry seems disinterested in engaging with how and why patriarchy actually works and manifests in the black community. And there's a reason for that, but again, we'll get to that later. And I can't not consider this a reflection of Tyler Perry's own experiences with abuse and trauma, especially when we look at the most overlooked but worst example of his depictions of black men, Tyler Perry himself playing Uncle Joe. For all the criticism Tyler Perry rightfully gets for pretty much everything, but especially the character Medea, it is a bit telling that the greater media critic community has not said much about the character Joe. Because in all the ways that Medea is an awful character that plays on black women stereotypes, so is Joe for black men, if not low-key worse, because at least Medea, while being bad, still has elements of quality and virtue to her character. She takes care of people. She's the matriarch of her domain. She gives the tough love speeches at the end of the movies, and it shows these wayward souls how to figure things out in their lives. So it's understood that while Medea has a lot of problems in universe, she is good. But Joe is just irredeemably awful. He's just an awful, ugly, horrible human being who's just there and serves only as comic relief, negativity, and mischief. Now, you might have an uncle like that. I low-key might have an uncle like that, but not like that. Even your worst uncles still have something about them that still makes them lovable or valuable on some level, but not Joe. Joe is an abusive, criminal, absentee father who beat his kids, used to pimp women, and as far as can be seen, is completely reliant on Medea for continued sustenance at this point in his awful life. Joe is everything awful that the world believes about black men. He's lazy, homophobic, criminally inclined, and predatory. He's all these things but played for laughs, so you don't really engage with it critically and think about, why is he here? And I remember early on feeling like that in Tyler Perry's second movie, Medea's Family Reunion. There's this scene where Joe is sitting at a table playing cards with a bunch of other older black men, which goes to show that clearly this is a universal problem. And this gorgeous girl walks past him. And I remember this because this girl went to Clark Atlanta University with me. I don't remember her name, but I vividly remember seeing her on campus because, I mean, look at her. Amazing. So I'm in theater all excited seeing this former classmate in the movie, but then I realize she has no lines. She's just there to be uncomfortably ogled at by these older black men who within the story she's related to. So Joe asked her to reach in and get him a soda from the cooler so that he and the rest of these older black men whom she is related to can ogle her without her knowing. And it's the grossest thing in the movie and one of the grossest things in any of his movies ever. I can't for the life of me understand why this scene wasn't quietly cut after all these years. It's up there with that scene from Two Can Play That Game that I keep bringing up, and I'll bring it up again because that shit's awful too.
Why must Mexican and black people cause so much ruckus in the white man's apartment building?
So Tyler has all these movies where abuse, including familial sexual assault, is at the core for his characters, and we're supposed to be serious about that topic at times. And he's collected this audience of predominantly black women who relate to this experience and are watching him because they want to see this issue be addressed seriously in media. But here he is taking that same predatory abusive dynamic and putting it on display for laughs. this scene, again, is at a family reunion. So this is their great niece or grandniece or whatever. This is someone's daughter, probably at the reunion in the moment, and they're just staring at her ass. And it's supposed to be funny. And I remember in the movie theater, nobody was laughing because it was just weird. And because Madea movies exist in their own pocket universe, if you care enough to care about the continuity, you realize that Joe is always around little girls in these movies, and this is not the only time he's done low-key creepy shit in the films.
I know I had some cigarettes in this. Papa.
It's an accidentally incredibly insightful reflection on how abuse is perpetuated in Black families when the predator is known but just ignored by the community as a whole. I won't act like there's not elements from Joe that aren't funny. He is roasting people left and right, even when a lot of those roasts just rely on homophobia or transphobia or fat jokes. But it's hard to look at him knowing who he represents and his behavior and not be thrown off. It's somewhat frustrating that for all the criticism of Perry over the years, Joe's never really gotten a lot of critique, because Perry has openly said that Madea is based on his mother and his aunts. And with that in mind, it stands to reason to think that Joe is based on Tyler Perry's own abusive father. And if you need any proof of this, consider how Tyler Perry spoke of his father earlier in the video and how he still takes care of him in real life, and the fact that Brian, the only character that Tyler Perry plays in his movies regularly out of costume, is Joe's son. Much of their banter together is often Brian arguing with Joe about the way he was raised and the way he's trying to do things differently. And Medea's also there, sometimes taking his side. And then it just hits you that Tyler Perry is just talking his shit out by himself as three different people instead of going to therapy. Perry feels no obligation to depict Black men with more tact, grace, or humility. Though, as you'll see, that's low-key true for everyone, but at least in this case, I think it's on purpose. But it's reflective of how Black men are positioned in Black spaces, especially the church. There's always the image of the Black ideal male who can do no wrong, who's perfect in every way. In the Tyler Perry's book, probably kind of light-skinned. And that Black man literally is above reproach. And if anything with him ever goes wrong, it must be someone else's fault. But these other dudes, Black men like Joe or like Tyler Perry's Black male villains, these Black men don't measure up to the patriarchal ideal, which technically in real life is all Black men. If you actually understand how patriarchal works and the fact that it's a white construct that was never meant for us in the first place, please read your Afro-pessimism and your Sylvia Winter. These lazy, deviant, good-for-nothing men deserve whatever they get and have not earned even the benefit of being understood. Their dysfunction is in their very nature, and that's why these men are abusive, but don't get any reason to explain why. That's just who they are at their core. So what you realize is that Black men in Tyler Perry movies are either there to fulfill fantasies or confirm stereotypes. That's really it. And he doesn't get a ton of critique around this, mostly because many of the Black men that care enough to critique Tyler Perry just call him gay and a cross-dresser and haven't actually tried to analyze what he's actually presenting about us, but also because he's just way more harmful to Black women as a whole.
Well, at least I have Jesus and a strong love of a Black, African, beautiful, independent Black woman. Cut! This isn't working. I cannot work like this anymore. I've worked with Jesus.
Of all the groups that can take issue with Tyler Perry, no group is more exploited by him than his Black female fan base. It's really insidious, manipulative, and morally bankrupt as a grift.
Yeah, we get occasionally you'll see these British authors, usually women, but not always, or not always British either. But they're like Danielle Steele is an example. And they produce sometimes 75, 100 books in their lifetime or something, and they are like universally worshipped by all these women. And, you know, and it's an interesting thing. I don't think a good author should publish 75 books. I don't know. Maybe you should settle down.
That he set up for himself, where he's created this.
That's how I felt about Stephen King, although I will say he always had a very high work ethic and a very high standard.
As a champion for Black.
But he published like 100 books in his lifetime. I don't know. It's like quantity in certain art forms, like writing. It seems a little weird.
Black women, one of a few men willing to represent black women's needs and interests at his level. But when you really look at what he's usually saying and doing in his media, it's much more serving to him than them. It's hard to know where to begin here, but let's just review what we've already said. We're going into maybe hour 2 or 3 at this point.
Yeah.
You may just be returning to the video. So here's what we got so far. Tyler Perry is seen as a champion of women greatly because of his ties to the black church, but what this really comes down to is Tyler Perry being a lowercase c conservative. A lot of people, when they hear me or others call certain black folks conservative, but they're also Democrats, they get confused. When I say lowercase c conservatives, I'm not talking about black Republicans. I'm talking about respectability politics blacks, hyper churchy, hyper capitalist blacks, folks that say stuff like pull up your pants and blame everything on the youth as if they weren't raising the youth. That lowercase c conservative. And don't get me started on how they feel about women and gay people. There's a part of me that respects and empathizes this old school ideology because those are the people that raised me, and I know at the end of the day, most of them, it comes from a loving place. But a bigger part of me sees what all this manifests as and sees the harm that it usually does, often to vulnerable black people who don't easily fit into those old school frameworks, and many of these people are often black women. In the grand scheme of things, Tyler Perry's manipulative media.
Unfortunately, I have to go to the bathroom. I will be back for a little while longer. Yep. Put the headphones in while I'm gone. Okay, sorry about that. I gotta get my headphones. Yeah, the Boondocks really went after him.
Sexuality, whose main appeal is the gun-toting, cursing character Ma Dukes, who is played by Winston in drag. The environment of the production is cult-like, and Jerome's character is overtly predatory towards Pops, definitely giving off pay-for-play vibes, which we'll come back to later. Carl Jones purports in the interviews that the ideas for this episode came from the fact that they knew at least one person who had worked with Perry, and that Perry was so affected by this that he personally got the show shelved and it never aired again for years, but also that he got so paranoid that because he knew he must have had a leak.
Well, I say this. So Gary Anthony Williams, who plays Uncle Ruckus, he also auditioned for a Tyler Perry movie or a TV show, and so we got a lot of inside information from Gary about what the process was like. And so this is why I think Tyler got so mad, because from what I heard, he felt like there was some snitches in his camp. He can't look like him. He can't use his name. You can't, nothing Tyler Perry related at all. So we named him Winston Jerome. We made him look different. And when it aired, he still got angry. And he literally called the network himself. And he said, if that ever airs again, it's going to be a problem. Because mind you, our parent company is Turner. Right? And he's going to Meet the Browns. And, you know what I'm saying? And he owned Turner at that point. So they were like, no problem, Mr. Perry. That's I'm gonna tell you, Tyler and Oprah Winfrey were the two, like those are the two people you can't touch.
Now, to be clear, Jones only speaks publicly about the prayer circle element of this show being directly taken from one person's experience at Perry. However, he does say that there are other things in there that people don't realize is real, which now brings us to the most concerning accusations that have been levied about Perry thus far. As of writing, because it has increased since I started this video, Perry has 2 official people that have accused him of sexual misconduct in a court of law.
Some of the messages more sexual in nature.
One of them says, what's it going to take for you to have guiltless sex? Have y'all found that in therapy yet? I would hope that you would let someone hold you and make love to you.
Now, the complaint also alleges that in January of 2020, there was an escalation from the text messages to Tyler Perry's behavior becoming physical. Can you explain that first alleged incident?
Yes, we were over his house. We're having some drinks in his guest house, and it was late at night, and he has a guest quarters, and said that you can sleep there instead of not driving. And his house is far from Atlanta and where I was living, and I got into bed, and then I noticed that he climbed into bed with me as well and started rubbing my leg. And I jumped up out of bed, and he said, turn around so I can look at you, and just commented on how I looked, and then he got up and left. So I thought after that instance, it was pretty clear that I was not interested in that type of a relationship. It was very, very strange.
Both accusers alleged that Perry groped and or assaulted them, that he offered them opportunities or paid money as a way to advance a sexual relationship. Both have released text exchanges, although to be fair, the most recent text exchanges are not all that compelling. But as I said earlier, rumors about Perry's behavior in Atlanta were pretty rampant for years, but they're just rumors. But even within those rumors, there's still really compelling examples of Perry's alleged improper behavior that stem from someone within his circle, the aforementioned Christian Keys. Keys seemingly got his start with Perry on stage plays as some of Perry's favorite light-skinned beefcake, which already, considering what I said earlier, kind of may raise a red flag. He was then a recurring actor in Perry's extended universe before being one of the few people to ever get a created by credit for one of Tyler Perry's shows, All the Queen's Men, in 2021. Then out of nowhere in 2023, Keys did a live stream where he alleged that a powerful black man in Hollywood was a predator, and that black man was a billionaire and had assaulted him, and he even said that he has tapes and all kinds of stuff. And while he never named Tyler Perry, it's safe to assume that like everybody was saying that's, I don't know the legal ramifications of this, but knowers know, right? How many black billionaires are in Hollywood? Ugh.
In the moment, I'm like, what the fuck? And wanted to, but you got a guy that's
I got Tyler Perry raped him.
A billionaire, and I got $3 grand in my bank account. who they gonna believe? Work was slow, and a lot of the work that was coming it had penis attached to it. I'm like, fuck that, man. That's not what I want. That's not what I'm about to do.
Keys purposely never said a specific name, but also let it slip that he has tapes. But as soon as the media cycle started to churn and people started to ask questions, all of it quickly went away and he dropped it. Now, again, to be clear, Keys never stated it was Perry who he was making these vague accusations about, but his and the other accusers' stories line up pretty well. Derek Dixon, the first official accuser, explicitly names Keys as a person whose story matches his own. Now, I don't know enough verified information to say whether or not Tyler Perry is a predator. Everything I've heard is a rumor or an unsubstantiated allegation awaiting legal proceedings, right? But I do want to go back to Keys' created by credit for All the King's Men and how unique that is for Perry and how Keys has expressed his feelings about this in the aftermath. Just this past January in another live, Keys insinuates that Perry tried to remove his credits from the show and that essentially he took the show over from him when he couldn't remove him completely.
Because, I mean, the studio tried to steal my created by credit. So, like, they posted, even this week, you know, end of the year, la-da-da-da-da, and you post my show like that's your show. It's you putting the show out there, but you're also the same studio, Tyler Perry Studios, that removed my created by credit, and I had to call a union to have them force TPS to put it back on there. I wrote the pilot, I created the show, I wrote the first season. It was originally, All the Queen's Men was originally 8 episodes, 8 half-an-hour episodes. And unbeknownst to me, Boss Man went in there and added 10 or 15 minutes to each episode, writing-wise, and then wrote the 10th episode himself. And I wasn't worried right away, even though I should have been a part of that. I should have been allowed to do that because I was the writer's room for season 1. So I wrote the whole season, but as soon as he popped in, and now it's 10 one-hour episodes, and he started writing on it, so then season 2, season 3, he just showed up and said, hey, here's the next 20 episodes, and here's the next 16 after that. I didn't get a chance to contribute, so that's when it got real weird.
Now, this is all just Keys' word versus Perry's, and Perry has at no point directly addressed anything Keys has said. But it is odd that Keys is one of very few people to have a created by credit on the numerous Tyler Perry TV shows. The only other person that can say this is Mark E. Swinson, who is a longtime collaborator with Perry and notably is also facing allegations of sexual assault by an actor within Tyler Perry's media universe. But his show, The Michael Blackson Show, only got 1 measly season. Swinton got another show that I think was under Perry, but I can't tell. The IMDb got a little confusing for me, but it also only got 1 measly season. All right, so we're live from the editing bay for the first time in a long time, as this video is a special occasion of sorts. And I wanted to chime in here to bring up one more story that I touched on earlier, but as I was going through the video one last time, I realized that this is something I really didn't spend enough time talking about. And this is referring to what happened between Tyler Perry and Nzinga Stewart when it was time for him to direct For Colored Girls in 2010. I glossed over this, but For Colored Girls is like a seminal Black feminist text. It's a big deal amongst Black feminist artists, creators, writers, poets, and of course, like scholars in general. And everybody was kind of thrown and freaking out when Tyler Perry was announced to direct it. And one of the reasons for that is because he wasn't originally supposed to be the person to do it. Nzinga Stewart, who had up until this point only directed like rap music videos, Jay-Z and whatnot, Stewart had gotten the rights directly from Ntozake Shange and had gotten an initial deal with Lionsgate Studios, who you know at the time was significantly partnered with Tyler Perry to make the film. And she had been going through all of those Hollywood motions of trying to get the film made. And essentially what happened was the film was only going to be done if Tyler Perry produced it. And Tyler Perry doesn't believe in producing anything for anybody else. So essentially, low-key, it seems like he bullied her out of the spot. Basically said, you can be a producer, you can get credit for all these different things, but the name, tagline, write it by, whatever, is all going to be Tyler Perry. Here's a quote from The Root article that talks about the whole situation. But another director had already taken that leap. Lionsgate, the company distributing the film, announced in March 2009 that music video director Nzinga Stewart was spearheading the project. 7 months later, it was announced that Perry, whose own production company, 34th Street Films, remember that for later, has a distribution deal with Lionsgate, will be writing and directing for Colored Girls. In July, Stewart told the Atlanta Post that she was involved in the initial childbirth of the film. I talked to the author, optioned the rights, and wrote a draft script, she said. Tyler Perry is one of those directors who finds his ways into the project by doing everything in the project: writing, producing, directing, and playing in it. Instead of writing and directing, Stewart is now listed as an executive producer for the movie. For her part, Stewart, who got her start directing videos for artists such as Jay-Z and Common, told the film blog Shadow Act that she is happy the project will be in theaters. It is a beautiful work that deserves to be supported. She took the high road when discussing her original adaptation, which she said Shange supported in relation to Perry's. It's probably better for me not to talk about my version of the script because I don't want it to take away from the version that's being produced now. So if you read between the lines, Tyler bullied this woman out of the opportunity to direct this seminal classic Black feminist text. And this is indicative of a lot of things I said earlier about how Tyler Perry views Black women and deals with Black women. I'm not even going to get into the many Black feminist critiques that I've seen about how he treated this movie and all the things that went wrong with it. But I just want to take a moment to bring that up because not only is that significant to indicating how Perry does business, but it's significant to talking about why Tyler Perry is feared and why it's very clear that nobody gets to eat at his table. And again, Keys is one of only like 3 people in the now 30 plus years of Tyler Perry's media empire that have ever made anything with Tyler Perry's resources. For this entire time, Tyler Perry Studios and the table that Tyler Perry has built has only served Tyler Perry. And I don't think anything I've said thus far is a bigger indictment of him as a man, as a Black man, than that fact. So again, according to Forbes, Perry's studio is the other major key in his wealth. And it's a major key in reframing how we should see him, in my opinion. Perry's studio was built on the old land of Fort McPherson.
I can relate. I'm a white person who doesn't really like white people that much. I don't have an active dislike of them, but I have an active fear of them. Like, no, so I would say, healthy respect. And so I think if Tyler Perry has the same issue with his own race, I'm not one to judge him.
Formerly a Confederate military base that was repurposed decades ago.
I think it's okay for you to dislike your own race.
Go into a normal military base.
As long as you don't go marching something about it or cause any problems. If you don't make it anybody's problem, if it's just your own personal ethos with it. White people seem to engage in a lot of predatory banking, you know, stuff like that. I think that's okay. But like actively disliking or doing something about it is completely unacceptable.
It was one of the largest bases in the South.
But you can make statements that are racist, like, boy, white people sure do have a lot of banks in the Cayman Islands and stuff like that, you know, just to make fun of them. But that shit frustrates me about my own race. And so I wouldn't say I'm like a race traitor. I just don't favor white people that much, having dealt with so many unpleasant ones.
With over 400 acres, and it supported thousands of jobs in the southwest area of Atlanta.
I've never met a colored person, or whatever you want to call it, some people of color. I'm sorry, people of color. I've never met any people of color who ever gave me an issue, ever, you know, but white people have.
Which is where I used to live. When it was first scheduled to close, it was kind of scary for that area because a lot of people and their jobs left the area and no one knew what would happen. There was this amazing initial idea.
I like white people as much as I like everybody else. It's just, you know, but when it comes to my own personal problems that I've faced in my lifetime, my barriers and stuff, a lot of those things were put there by white people for no real reason, just because they want to say that I can't do drugs or something like that, and they put me up against the wall for no reason. And so I just I take it on a case-by-case basis. I don't think all white people are bad at all.
That they would turn the fort.
I just think that white people like to build jails, and I think white people like to play God, and white people like to play politics that unfairly. you know, and stuff like that. So I just sort of, I think white people think that God's a white man or Jesus is a white man and it isn't somebody else, or that God isn't a woman, which doesn't really make sense. And like, you know, and all this other stuff. And so I just have a healthy respect of that. I have a healthy respect for them. It's not a fear. It's just a wariness. It's like a healthy wariness, because I myself have had personal problems with them. I can't judge a race on just the actions of just a few people, though. But I mean, I don't know. The people running the prisons, man, they're usually rich and white.
Into a science complex due to Atlanta's growing tech industry, especially with schools like Georgia Tech, only 20 minutes away, let alone colleges like Morehouse and Spelman and Clark that could benefit from something like that. However, the Science Center thing broke down and everything was radio silent for years. And then suddenly in 2014, it was just,
I'm Tyler Perry and I'm here to buy your college something, maybe.
Announced out of the blue that Perry had bought the land and it would become the home for his studios. He had somehow quietly bought 330 of the 400 plus acres for only $30 million. I don't know a lot about real estate, but part of me thinks that even in 2014, $1 million per 10 acres of developed manicured land, complete with houses and other infrastructure already built, sounds like a really, really sweetheart deal for Tyler Perry. To put this in perspective, the city initially paid $30 million to start the Cop City project for only 85 acres of underdeveloped land that was essentially a forest, and that happened a couple of years ago. This land sale elicited lawsuits claiming that the sale was...
I don't have the time to finish this video, guys. I'm fading, so I'm going to stop here. I am Skycatlive. Come to skycat.live and click on the cast face to donate, or come to the Twitch or the YouTube or the Kick and give me a like, sub, or a follow. I have many thousands of videos on my YouTube channel. I'm going to stop this recording right here with a reminder that you've been watching Skycat Live. Catch me tomorrow for some more video games and stuff, and I'll be way less drunk and definitely more with it. I'm going to do some more gaming and stuff. But yes, I will be around tomorrow, you know, and here we go. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to